and how true that is. I opened today's Literacy Summit with that sentiment and really that challenge to you today. I would like to have you imagine, what would Grand Rapids be like? What would our county be like? What would our region be like if everyone could read? Every man, woman, child could read at the level of their capacity. I am hopeful that you can today challenge yourself, imagine, keep that imagination in your brain, challenge yourself and challenge each other to come to solutions of how can we make that dream or that vision happen, where every child who's 5 years old is ready to learn when he or she enters school. Every third grader is reading at grade level. Every high school student is graduating from high school. And I'm going to take it a step further. Every high school student has a goal and is able to enroll in college and pursue his or her dreams in college. I ask you to keep that vision alive today, but also to work with us in the future with the Community Literacy Initiative. And let me just tell you that today's event, the First Literacy Summit, was really the work for the past year and the brainchild of the Community Literacy Initiative. The Community Literacy Initiative has been around under another name of Greater Grand Rapids Reads for a bit of history. But at one point, when the initiative was determining sort of what to do with itself, the Literacy Center was offered the opportunity and the pleasure and the responsibility to take on this coalition building initiative and lead the way. And it is with great honor, responsibility, excitement, and a bit of goosebumps that we take on this responsibility to lead the way. But we cannot, as leaders, we cannot be the ones that do the work. We really need everyone. There's no way that the Literacy Center can solve the problem by itself. We need every organization, every college, every person participating in this process, and that's you. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest in pursuing that. I also wanted to just mention, we have a few of our Literacy Center board members in the room today, and I thank them for believing in this work to take it on beyond the direct service work that the Literacy Center has done for over 20 years to take on this coalition building work. So I just like our board members to stand up a minute and just thank them for believing in the work. Thank you. You will hear more about the Community Literacy Initiative later this morning with Lindsay McComb. We'll talk more about it. But overall, we launched the new initiative last fall with an overarching mission of really moving the literacy needle, really improving literacy in our region. You'll hear more about the whole structure of the Literacy Initiative and some of our goals and strategies. And Lindsay's been a great director of that initiative, and you will get to hear all about that soon. Just a little brief review of our agenda for today. This morning, we will be all in this room together, and your agendas are in the folder that you received at registration. We will hear from our wonderful keynote speakers. I'm very excited to hear from Barbara O'Brien and Anneshia Freeman. And we'll also hear from our literacy champions, Mayor George Hartwell and Bing Goy, as well as our literacy co-chairs of our advisory council, and that's Jesse Hertzstein and Tony Campbell. We will have a breakout session. We'll be back in the room to receive our lunch, and then this afternoon at 12:15 we'll be splitting off into breakout sessions. We have a lot of wonderful breakout sessions. They're all listed in your notebook, And there's a couple things I'd like to ask you to do at your break times. One is to make sure that you visit our exhibitors hall, that we have some booths there, some programs displaying their information. And also I'd like you to, if you haven't already, is to go back to the registration table and sign our scroll. It's not our scroll, I shouldn't say our scroll. It's a scroll that's going around the country, the Right to Read scroll, just confirming that you believe that every individual has the right to read. Yet we have a lot of, I could probably hang it from the ceiling and we'd have all those names from West Michigan. We'd like to make that even longer, so help us out. There will be ushers around to help you find your rooms this afternoon, if you, but there's also signs by every room. And finally, I'd just like to thank all the organizations that are participating today to help us carry forward with this work. Thank you very much for being here. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker. If any organization is critical to this work and moving the literacy needle, it's the Grand Rapids Public Schools. And certainly they are one of the organizations that will lead to the success, not just of our city, but of our region. And today we have John Helmholt here to present to you. And he is the Director of Communications and External Affairs for Grand Rapids Public Schools. He's in charge of the district's internal and external communications, media relations, marketing and advertising, legislative affairs, community relations, and special projects. Wow. That's a lot. So with that, I welcome John Helmholt to the stage.
Appreciate it. Good morning. Thank you very much. It's an honor and privilege for me to be here today, and what a great attendance. Hats off to the Literacy Center for this great summit. On behalf of Superintendent Teresa Weatherall-Neal, the Grand Rapids Board of Education, and our 4,000-strong professional educators and support staff, we want to give our thanks to the Literacy Center of West Michigan for all the work that they do to support our students, our parents, our families, and everyone that's around GRPS working for the betterment of our community's children. And this summit is so important in how you can align and bring together all these great people who are really trying to row in the same direction for the same goal and the same outcome. Our superintendent does send her regrets. She really wanted to be here, but under the new duties and the new superintendent, she had a conflict that came up that required her attention, so she does send her regrets. But if I may say, how about this new superintendent? I'm certainly biased, as biased could possibly be, but I've also seen firsthand on a daily basis the difference that one individual, one leader, with the right diplomacy, with leadership, with vision, and how that one person can change culture, can change an organization just by being the leader that she is. And I'm more excited now than ever than when I started almost 6 years ago now. And bottom line is, I think Teresa is the right person at the right time. It's really the dawn of a new day at Grand Rapids Public Schools. I hope many of you are seeing and feeling it. There's a new alignment that's happening. There's a new approach to how we do business, to how we work and partner with individuals and organizations. For once, and I really believe this, I feel like we're all rowing pretty much in the same direction, and that's internally and externally. For a long time, we were a house divided, and there were some really difficult decisions that were made in the last few years that festered that division. But there's a new alignment, a healing. Those barriers that were once there for working with our schools and our students, those barriers are being torn down. The bridges that may have been burnt or broken a little bit over the years are being worked to be rebuilt and strengthened. The respect and support for our education professionals, for our teachers, our principals, and our support staff is being renewed and restored. And there's a renewed emphasis in how we educate our staff, our parents, and the overall community about how to work together, how to get in the classrooms, how to work with the parents, work with students, and come together so we support all students, both young and old, the student learner and the adult learner. Part of this starts with singing from the same hymn book. We have to get on the same page and really be singing from the same hymn book. Superintendent Neal did our listening tour last January, met with over 1,000 individuals through surveys, small group, large group, to gather information and feedback about what's working, what's not, what are things that we need to be doing, what are things we need to stop doing. Part of that included meeting with like barbers, beauticians, pastors, the people, the grassroots on the ground who are having a daily interaction with students and parents. What she heard from many of them was, tell us what to do. Tell us how we can better support you, how we can better support these students, these parents, just understanding what does it take to be a parent. I'm a relatively new parent, and I may be in the education world, but I sure don't feel like I know what I'm doing. So how do we build that common language and a common message that can be delivered from every individual and every organization? And we've really piggybacked off of the Believe to Become initiative. One of the things they use is known as vital behaviors. And you're going to see more from GRPS, and it's captured in here. And when I go through these, you'll see what I mean. But these are simple behaviors that are key to a child and an adult success. It's about focusing on really 4 or 5 areas. Number 1, reading, okay? We are here at the Literacy Summit, so it kind of makes sense. But a child's ability to read is considered one of the number 1 factors in their academic success. I think we all know the data, but I'll say it one more time because it is very impactful. There was a study that was done recently. Over 4,000 students were assessed. This was reported in Education Week. And the quote is, a student who can't read on grade level by 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate. When you factor in poverty, it's 13 times less likely to graduate. We know the data is real. We know that this is a challenge both with young students as well as our adult learners. I think I heard a statistic that 1 in 5 adults are not literate. This is an issue that we as a community have to do more about. So the message is simple. Read 20 minutes a day to your child, starting right at birth, all the way through the K-12 system. It seems so simple, and it doesn't have to be a book from the library or a book you bought from Barnes & Noble. Take the remote control guide or the newspaper or pull up the MLive app and read. I do that with my son all the time. I'm an old-fashioned. I still have my newspaper. But just that little bit of interaction is so simple and easy to do. Second, attendance. You're going to hear a report from the Kent School Services Network. I know it's one of the breakouts. Chronic absenteeism, we have a crisis in this city, okay? 1 in 5 students at Grand Rapids Public Schools are chronically absent. More than 20%, it's actually 21%. That means they miss more than 18 days of school. Now, how can we expect for there to be a high level of achievement when they're not even there to learn? And it is a cultural issue. It is something we have to do as a community to drill in a high expectation of all students, of parents and families, the expectation of attendance. So that vital behavior is be at school, get to school, be on school on time every day. I will say Superintendent Neal is very serious about this. We are working with the Department of Human Services as chronic absenteeism is something that actually it can be enforceable from a human services standpoint. It's frankly considered neglect. And that's something that we as a community also need to get serious about. The third one, of course, is also around behavior and expectations. Knowing what the rules are and playing by the rules and having a fair, firm, and consistent approach to that. It's raising the expectations of what we expect from our children and, frankly, from parents and the adults, because some of the behaviors that are exhibited by adults are not necessarily what we want to see in our schools or in the classrooms. The fourth one, positive affirmation and support. This is simply putting a pat on the back and saying, good job. I'm glad that you made it to school on time. I'm glad that you turned your homework in. Great job. giving them the positive support. All too often, children hear about what's not being done right, or we're as much the parent. They get the call from school, and it's usually a negative, not a positive. And so we're trying to change that culture where we have our teachers call, and the principals call just to say, hey, how you doing, Mom and Dad? Is there anything I can do for you? Thank you for your support. Keep up the good work. Make sure your kid gets to school every day. This little positive affirmation is something and it's not just a parent's expectation. That's the barber, the beautician, the librarian, the nonprofit provider. All of us have a role to play in that, in supporting students and parents. Now, you're going to see more and more of this. In fact, we have a campaign where there's signage in English and Spanish that will be in every barbershop, beauty salon, bulletins in churches, and other opportunities to really get this message out there to try to help those people on the ground really understand what these vital behaviors are and how they can continually reinforce that. It can't be a one and done. It's got to be done year-round, every time you possibly can. So hats off to our friends at Believe to Become and Link Community Revitalization. They're the boots on the ground that have really been working in those hope zones. We're piggybacking off that and taking it citywide. And of course, this is not limited to GRPS or the city of Grand Rapids. This is a regional issue, one that we hope everyone will start to adopt these vital behaviors, start to use this messaging. You can go to wearegr.com. This is a new joint communications initiative with the City of Grand Rapids and GRPS to talk about what are the positive things that are happening in our schools and in our city. Included in there will be the vital behaviors. You can also go to IbelieveIBecome.com. I know they have information there as well. And I'll stop there and just to say, again, thank you for everything you all do. You are the lifeblood. You are helping to support our students in this community. And again, we commend the Literacy Center for this great summit. So thank you.
Good morning. Boy, y'all got more energy than that. Good morning. Look at this beautiful day out there, this wonderful fall day in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Isn't it great to be here and great to be alive? Yeah. Gosh. Man, oh man. I don't know how I look up here to you, but y'all, you look great out there to me. So, maybe that's what it is. You're looking up here and going, oh my God. But Lindsay asked me, we're really in trouble because Lindsay asked me to do something with technology up here. She said, all you have to do is push one button. So I'm going to push one button, and I'm hoping the building doesn't explode. So here we go. It's the escape button, right, Lindsay? Where's the... Can you do it? Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we'll just minimize this, I guess.
Oh, boy. You can see I need some real help with technological literacy. So I am, gosh, thank you, Lindsay. It is a real honor to be here this morning. It's a real honor to be with you because I think we are in a synchronicity of time. Whenever you have political figures as diverse as Condoleezza Rice and also Jesse Jackson saying the same thing, saying that literacy and education is the great civil rights issue of our time, because education and literacy has always been that equalizing force within our society. And when people can't read, when children can't succeed, when adults can't get jobs because they can't read, then we have got to do something. This is the time to do that work. And so we're in that synchronicity of time, but I am so happy to be here and live here in Grand Rapids because I think we are on the right issue. We're at the right time, and we have exactly the right people to do this work and to get it done. And it starts with our mayor. Our mayor is the first champion of literacy in this city. He was the first person to stand up and say this is important. This is more than just an education issue, but this is a city issue. He has taken the lead in the state, but he's also, I don't know any other mayor in the United States who has been as great a champion of literacy as George Hartwell. I want to thank George Hartwell for his stance and what he's done in this community. And it's not just our mayor. The county and Matthew Van Zetten have engaged in literacy, and I haven't seen a county engage in literacy that way. Bing Goy represents, when I asked Bing if he would come on board and be one of the champions, he didn't hesitate. He said immediately, and he represents a whole new group of business people who see this not just as an education issue, but also as an economic issue, but also as a moral issue. And I agree with John. We have absolutely the greatest superintendent of schools, I think, in the United States. And I think Teresa Neal is not going to only be a great leader for Grand Rapids, but I think the work that she is going to do is going to be a model that's going to help transform the country. And then we have funders that have begun to line up and put their resources behind literacy. But most of all, it is the volunteers in this room, the people in this room who have came together and said, look, literacy is important. We've got to do something about it. So I'd like you to take a second and just reach out to your right and left and pat the person on the back next to you and say, thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for being a literacy champion. Big, I said, don't punch each other. They're so happy. Oh, my gosh. And the last person that I have said this before in other forums, the last person that I really want to point out, because she really has, she was a voice in the wilderness when literacy wasn't an issue on the map. She was the person who was standing up and saying, literacy is going to be important to the future of Western Michigan. Literacy is going to be important to Kent County, and we have to start an organization and do something about it. And that is the Literacy Center, and the person I want to personally acknowledge is Susan Leedy for really being the pioneer in this work. So, thank you, Susan. It is my great pleasure and honor this morning to introduce to you the Honorable Barbara O'Brien. And I want to tell you that last night, I'm going to read her the information about her, but last night I got the chance to meet her, and let me tell you that she is not only a person who is very, very knowledgeable about literacy issues in Colorado, but also nationally and how they impact us. And she's a person of great intelligence, great wit, great charm, but she is also very, very passionate about kids and about literacy and about adults being able to read and making a difference in the life of America. And so she is really and truly a great literacy champion, and I think you're going to really enjoy getting to meet her through her speech this morning. The Honorable Barbara O'Brien is the Senior Policy Fellow at the Piton Foundation, a Senior Fellow at the Morgridge College of Education, University of Denver, and National Policy Director for the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. She also co-chairs the Early Reading and Technology Committee for the Campaign for Grade Level Reading and Converge US. Recent work has included state and national presentations on policies that promote early literacy, an NBC Education Nation panel on third grade reading policy issues, and involvement in the passage of Colorado's READ Act. O'Brien served as Lieutenant Governor of Colorado from 2007 to 2011. Prior to that, she served for 16 years as president of the Colorado Children's Campaign, a statewide public policy and advocacy organization. Her leadership has led to the creation of the Colorado Preschool Program, establishment of Colorado's first statewide full-day kindergarten program, the Early Childhood Leadership Commission, new standards and assessments for preschool through high school, a framework for educator evaluation that became a model for other states, options for dual enrollment in high school and community college, health care for uninsured children, and mental health services for adolescents. O'Brien also played a lead role in two successful statewide ballot initiatives, Amendment 23, that increased funding for public education, and Amendment 35, that increased tobacco taxes with the revenue earmarked for health care. Please help me welcome the Honorable Barbara O'Brien.
Good morning. I'm always reminded that I've actually been around maybe too long, because it used to be you could put your speech on the podium, and now there's almost always a laptop here. So it's adjusting to technology in an even different way. I have to tell you, I have just fallen in love with Grand Rapids. I had a chance to walk around town yesterday after I got in from my plane, and the art prize and the river and the architecture. This is a wonderful place. I also have had a chance to talk with some of the people you've heard this morning about everything that Grand Rapids is doing around literacy. And I've spoken to a lot of groups around the country, and I think this is the most comprehensive, substantive approach to improving literacy in a community across all ages that I've ever had a chance to learn from. And I think it's just remarkable that the partnerships you formed with the school district, the role of the mayor, the business community, the deep dive into the sources of illiteracy, in addition to new people coming in who need to learn to read, but also people for other reasons in their families and communities not coming out of literate homes and not on a path to reading proficiently. Just the span of attention that you're giving this, I think, is really wonderful. And I have to congratulate Lindsay. I don't know, Lindsay, if you are entirely responsible for the program. Where did you go, Lindsay? Yeah, I don't know if you thought all of this up. You have a committee. Well, you have a very thoughtful committee because the topics really dive into the key areas. So just my congratulations, and I'm taking this back to Denver, and I intend to humiliate a few people that they didn't come up with something like this, and it's your first year. So congratulations. I just want to talk a little bit about the campaign for grade level reading, where I spend a good bulk of my time, and then dive into where I think these movements for literacy across the country and probably here are headed as well. The campaign for grade level reading is an effort to get the country, but also individual communities and school districts, to really focus on increasing the number of kids, students, who are proficient readers at the end of third grade. And the reason is that fourth grade is when harder textbooks, more complicated materials, you start specializing in education, you start looking at sciences and earth sciences, and kids really start a different phase of their educations in fourth grade. And if they can't read at grade level by third grade, the chances are that they will never catch up. And to hear a third grader or a fourth grader, and I have even heard kindergartners say this, that they're not smart enough to do the material, when the only issue is that they can't read it. If they could read it, of course they would understand it. So I think the national imperative is to put a stake in the ground for kids around reading proficiency at the end of third grade, which is measurable. States have assessments. School districts know whether or not they're on track. And then in fourth grade, there's a national comparison, the NAEP test, which can compare Michigan to other states and let you know how your fourth graders are doing. Now, your fourth graders are about average for the country. And I don't know about you, but in Colorado, we get angry when we hear we're average. It's not good enough. But I'm going to tell you something a little bit scary that you probably already know, that average in our country is completely unacceptable. We are in the bottom third of developed countries for how our kids compare on reading, math, and science tests. So to be average means that you're in the bottom third. So we have to decide that we are going to aim for excellence by every comparison and figure out, if this is what excellence looks like, what is every step and every measurable benchmark going back, I would say, to prenatal care and birth. And I think part of what we have to do is to figure out, why are we as communities and a society having to put so much effort into getting kids caught up? Why aren't we putting that effort into making sure they never fall behind in the first place? When I first came to understand that perspective, I had the chance to spend a day and a half with the Minister of Education from Finland, who was visiting the United States. And someone in our group asked him how to, because Finland is either 1 or 2 in the world for reading, math, and science. They're tied neck and neck with Singapore over the years. And someone asked, well, how do you get your kids caught up? And he said, you know, I get that question all over America. He said, in Finland, we do everything in our power to never let a child fall behind. Now think about that. What would it take to decide that part of your literacy strategy is to figure out what needs to happen so that no child falls behind to begin with? One of the things that would happen if you could do this is that your school district would have a much better chance of excelling every child toward international standards of excellence, because they would have more resources to focus on the few kids who were still struggling, and more time to focus on the kids who could be accelerated, who could learn faster, who could take on more challenging material. It would be an ability to shift attention and resources, I think, in ways that would be liberating for the school district. But it's going to require not having an increasing number of children who are struggling entering kindergarten to begin with. So I think the vision of where literacy fits into this and the courage to figure out how to have a comprehensive approach to this is really going to be the key to how we move forward. And I believe that the future of our nation is at stake over this. I just don't see how we go forward as a country that's the most innovative, the most productive, the most creative, the most stable. I mean, all of those things we know about our country. If we have 2/3 of all 4th graders who can't read proficiently, that is a tsunami coming at our country of kids who are not going to be able to participate in democracy or the economy or help their own families achieve. So I think the importance of what you are working on here and the national importance of more communities doing what you are doing, it's absolutely vital for us. So I want to dive in now to a couple of specifics in this. When you think about 3rd grade reading and reading well at the end of 3rd grade, what you're really talking about is 8 years in the life of a child. And 4 of those years take place before they ever walk through the doors of kindergarten. So half of those years take place in the community in places where they might not even touch your literacy programs. It's going to be in whether or not they're screened for developmental delays, whether or not mothers who are struggling with maternal depression get some help so they can organize their families and even get their kids to school in the early years, which is part of the absentee issue you just heard about. It's going to have to do with kids getting their eyesight and their hearing checked. I mean, it's a variety of things that make sure that these little learning machines that are young kids, toddlers and preschoolers, are able to absorb everything they need to become readers. Because as the reading experts in this room know, part of reading is not just decoding and vocabulary. It's learning that there's this great big world out there of architecture and painting and science and space shots, and it's getting interest in the broader world, and it's gaining the vocabulary for this broader world. And it's also getting the confidence to be able to read materials that are a little above your ability. I mean, we've all done this, right? You don't know all the words in the sentence, but you trust yourself that you can get meaning out of it because it's interesting and you want to learn it. And it's that magic that happens, that the more you read, the more your interest pushes you to read above your level, the better the reader you are. It's this wonderful combination of the skills of reading and the exposure to the art prize and the river and river biology just by wading in it. I mean, all those things that make for an enriched environment for children. The other thing I think that we need to really start to focus on is that reading is part of STEM education. And STEM education is science, technology, engineering, and math. And if we want kids to not only be literate for reading, we want that payoff to come in their literacy in math and science, so that they are getting those two pillars of being an educated person in this modern world coming together at the same time. Because when you think about it, how do young kids start to learn math? It's word problems. They get to math through language. So you are working on both. If you can expose kids to a rich world of these other parts that aren't just reading, that have to do with the river or the stars or those zombies hanging from the light post for the art for the art prize. But I have learned something about how little kids learn math that was a shock to me, and I will just pass it along so that you can think about it, and maybe you'll come up with how to make this a part of literacy work in your community. I had a chance to go to a briefing at the Institute of Medicine on the most recent research on child development and the implications for elementary school education. And so what I said about how do kids learn math, it's through word problems, so literacy is vital for math literacy. And that's true, but there's also something else. There is a logic of math that's not verbal logic. Who knew? I'm not a math and sciences person, so maybe that's why but anyway, and we saw videos of low-income little kids, 3 and 4-year-olds, preschool age, although they had not attended preschool, and they had 5 blocks. And they were asked by the researcher to count the blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then tell him how many blocks there were. They couldn't do it. They couldn't make the jump from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to being able to say that meant there were 5 of them. It was a logical step that they had not picked up in a household where you might have a mom saying, don't put 5 forks on the table tonight because Dad won't come home, put 4. I mean, just the vocabulary, the exchange, the relationship that comes out of a very verbal household. And then they showed a video of some 3 and 4 little kids from middle-income homes, had attended preschool, and there was a little 3-year-old girl, and the researcher said, count the blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many blocks are there? And she went, 5. It just came with the environment and the experiences and the preschool that experience that she had had. So I think part of what we're talking about when we talk about having these goals for literacy is also understanding that when you have children coming from homes that aren't that verbal, or it's chaotic enough for a variety of reasons, that kind of structure where you organize your life through a different logic from just verbal logic, having to do with counting and things like that, that it's absolutely essential that part of the literacy strategy means that every child who's struggling, the parents at least have the opportunity to be able to get them into a preschool program that they can afford or get subsidized or pay a copay or whatever, that those early ways the brain starts to work around the logic of literacy broadly defined, verbal and mathematic, is absolutely essential for these things all coming together when they get into the higher grades in school. The next point I want to talk on is that the schools obviously are huge partners and leaders in all of this. But I think there's also a policy and advocacy component to a literacy initiative that's not just mobilizing and training volunteers. And it's not just making sure young kids get what they need before they even go to school, so they're ready for school when they walk through those doors at kindergarten. But that we have across this country a real challenge in the preparation of teachers that our school districts can even hire. There have been numerous studies that when teachers are in a teacher preparation program, they get a lot of theoretical knowledge, but it's very rare that they get observed in classroom settings and someone, a master teacher or someone, being able to say, yes, this teacher not only knows the theory of reading, but can teach reading. I've been doing this informal survey across the country of elementary school principals, and I asked them, how many of your brand new teachers go into a classroom and know how to teach reading? And basically 95% say they don't know how to teach reading. And the principals are spending the bulk of their professional development dollars on helping brand new teachers learn to teach reading. And in an elementary school, what could be more important? What it also means is that the professional development budget isn't being used to help the veteran teachers be intellectually engaged in their field, to learn new things, to learn how to coach younger teachers, all of those things that let someone feel fulfilled in a long career in teaching. So I think part of what I hope you will take on when you have all of this sort of under control is being a voice at the state capitol for the state taking very seriously what does it mean for a teacher preparation program to be certified by the state? What does it mean to get a license? How have teachers demonstrated they really can teach reading and not just take a test showing they know the theory of reading? I do think that there's a serious policy component to this, that voices from communities who have first-hand knowledge with literacy issues across the spectrum, community to the schools, can be a very powerful voice for saying it's time to also make sure that the teachers who come into Grand Rapids School District really know how to walk into a classroom in the first day and do the most important thing they have to do in an elementary school, which is either teach kids to read or get them caught up so they're learning to read at the level that they should. Summer learning. I'm so happy to see that you are focused on what's happening, or one of your breakout sessions is going to be what happens in the summer. And I'll just reiterate what I said before, that if the summer reading programs are tutoring and getting caught up and drill on reading skills, half of what needs to be done is being missed. And you might already know this. I just believe it so deeply that I want to repeat it, that exposure to the world that will let kids learn vocabulary because they see interesting things and then they want to read about it is part of how you help kids learn to read. And there was a study that came out earlier this year about what do children like to read. It's not stories. It's not fiction. Young kids actually like to read about real things. Our country kind of went in the direction of stories and telling people stories and culture, which is wonderful. But you ask a little kid if they want to read about a makeup person or a water bug, they will choose the water bug. And that's the beginning of earth sciences and biology and marine science. So just to make sure that at least in the summers, when you get more and more kids who are behind in their reading into some kind of program to help them get caught up, to make sure that it enriches their experience of the world, in addition to, focus on the reading skills that need to be improved. I guess the the other thing that, just from a personal standpoint, concerns me, and this is from someone who spent the bulk of my career in the nonprofit world, is that the best parts about our culture as Americans is that we're entrepreneurial. We respect great leaders. You know, we love new ideas. Those of you from the foundation world know that, you know, one of the most exciting things is to fund a startup. You know, 3 years of startup money for an organization. We are not so good at follow-through and the hard work of implementation. I was saying to Tony last night, we all like to chase shiny new pennies. But I think the challenge to all of us as Americans is, how do you take the great step forward that Grand Rapids has taken with the Literacy Initiative and the Literacy Center? How do you take that and then have the business community and the mayor, maybe the county commissioners, you know who the right people are, how do you make sure that some sustainability plan is being developed in parallel to the great spirit and energy that's coming out of the community and the volunteers and the plan and the training that you are all doing? Because I know from the volunteer world and the nonprofit world, and you probably do too, what happens when you have a great president of a nonprofit who moves on to another opportunity, and for a year or two their fundraising drops? You know, they've lost some leadership, they've got to find a new person who has to get settled. Well, that second grader who needed extra reading tutoring, or that second grade's mother who needs to learn to read, that doesn't change. But the fundraising, because it's so soft and grant-based, is going like this when you have community needs that are like this. And I think my challenge in particular would be to the business community, you know, how do you change the culture of a company? How do you embed it in the whole organization? Is that transferable to a city? Is it transferable to a county? And how do you create the community support so that an elected mayor can make some reallocations in a tight budget to make this a priority, and he's not left hanging out there while everybody else is complaining that they had to give up a little something? You know, that as a democracy, we have to be there for those leaders who are in office. We have to have a chorus of support for a mayor or a county commissioner or a governor who says it is so important to front load what we are doing in our schools or in our community services, that I'm gonna do what we hear we're supposed to do, is make your checkbook reflect your values. We're gonna do that at the state, county, and city level. And they've got to look over their shoulder and see that there's a whole group of opinion leaders and business leaders and nonprofit leaders who are saying, we are behind you on this because we believe in it. And if we can do that, we're going to start to see fewer kids coming into the school system who are behind or who need extra help. It's going to let the teachers focus on the fewer kids who need something extra, and also have the ability to accelerate the ones who are doing fine. And if we can do that at the kitchen table with parents, in libraries, in classrooms, and at the state capitol, we're going to find ourselves with a country that is absolutely powering ahead, because we are going to out-compete, out-innovate, and out-educate everyone else around the world. And that creates opportunities for our kids, and it creates the dynamic country we all believe in. So I know you're working hard. I know you're committed. I just have to say, do more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We are actually going to take a short 10-15-minute break. We'll switch the agenda around. When we come back from the break, Mayor Hartwell will introduce Anneshia Freeman, and then I will tell you a little bit more about the Community Literacy Initiative. So please take a moment to grab some coffee, use the restrooms, take a look at our exhibitors hallway, and if you haven't already signed the Right to Literacy scroll, please sign that for us as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll invite you please to return to your seats. Those out in the hallway, if you can hear, come on back in. Bingoy, I see you out there. Would you help bring people in? All right, well, let me add my words of greeting to those that you heard earlier. I'm George Hartwell, Mayor of the great city of Grand Rapids. Yes. Where this mayor on this subject feels extraordinarily well supported. This is a community that really has come together in all of its dimensions, from business to human services to the faith community to higher education, has come together around literacy and supporting a literacy initiative. I want to recognize in the audience a colleague and friend who helped launch this work with me some numbers of years ago when he was the president of Grand Rapids Community College. Dr. Juan Oliveras is with us today. Juan and I hosted the first community literacy. We called this the first community literacy summit. Sort of the second generation first literacy summit. The first generation first literacy summit, Juan and I co-hosted in 2005, I believe it was. And Juan was at that time served on the White House Council for Literacy, and so brought a national dimension to this work as well. So thank you, Juan, for your continuing commitment to this work, and thank you all for being here and being a part of this today. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce our next keynote speaker. Anneshia Freeman came to Grand Rapids in October of 2000 with 2 months clean from a 15-year cocaine addiction. Shortly after arriving in Grand Rapids, Anneshia decided she wanted to attend college. She'd completed a high school program under an accelerated Christian education school, housed in a program for girls when she was 16, and she was devastated to learn when she applied for college that that school was not accredited, and therefore her diploma would not be accepted for college. Not to be deterred, Anneshia started over again and obtained her GED at West Middle in December of 2000 and began attending Grand Rapids Community College in January of 2001. Anneshia completed her associate's degree in August of 2002 with a 3.9 GPA. She went on to pursue a bachelor's degree in business studies at Davenport University on a transfer scholarship. Anneshia graduated with her bachelor's degree in April of 2006 with a 3.9 GPA. She seems like a pattern here, doesn't it? She began studying for her MBA at Cornerstone University, and she graduated with that MPA in August of 2008 with a, yes, you got it. Anneshia became a certified addictions counselor in February of 2008. She fulfilled the requirements for this certification while simultaneously pursuing that MBA and working full-time. Anneshia then began work on her MSW at Grand Valley State University, maintaining a, no! A 4.0. Attending on a King Park Chavez Future Faculty Fellowship. She graduated this past April. Anneshia is the creator and director of a copywritten, trademarked cognitive restructuring and resocialization program. I didn't write this, so I couldn't tell you what that is. Entitled The Lies That Bind, The Legacy of the Locks. The program is based on the work of several experts in the field of neuroscience and psychology, as well as the results of a 15-year participant observation, exploratory ethnographic research project of several inter-city cultures. It means she hung out in the hood. Is that what that means, Anneshia? Thank you. Currently, Anneshia is employed at Arbor Circle, where she's trained 9 MSW therapists in her program methodology. The methodology was piloted within the Mission In program for 4 years. The Mission In program assists women with children under the age of 5 in stopping the generational cycles of drug addiction and poverty in their families. The Lies That Bind is currently being utilized by the 61st District Court, drug court and sobriety court programs. Anneshia has developed an adolescent version of the Lies That Bind program that assists high-risk inner-city youth. And that's what's written here about Anneshia Freeman. What I can tell you personally about Anneshia Freeman is that while she was getting all those degrees, she was also amassing credits toward a PDD, a doctorate in personal discipline. I came to know Anneshia during our time working together at Aquinas College and the Community Leadership Institute. She allowed me the fiction of believing that I was the boss and accomplished just about anything she wanted to accomplish during that time. I found Anneshia to be smart, to be energetic, to be creative, to be a passionate leader, committed to the cause that she's thrown herself into wholeheartedly. Someone whose instincts I've come to trust and whose moral compass always points straight north, and whose friendship I value highly. I want to warn you, though, she comes with a warning label. And so I'm going to urge you to buckle your seatbelts because you are in for the next however long she speaks, and she can speak a long time. You are in for a time of learning, but also a time of high energy and excitement. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help welcome my good friend, Anneshia Freeman.
Okay, I'm thinking that are your tech people anywhere in the area? Because I don't have a password. Good. How is everyone doing this morning?
I think all you need to do is go down here.
Okay, I don't need a password. Okay.
Oh.
You're going to do that. Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, how's everyone doing?
Great.
Good. Let's see if this will work here for me. Okay, good. As you can see here from the screen, my name is Anneshia Freeman. I am very excited to be here. This is a subject that I'm very passionate about. I was going over my notes over the past couple weeks, and every time I did, I started crying, which is unusual for me. I've been telling my story probably since I had 6 months clean. I've told my story all over the country. I've been featured. My story has been featured internationally on the 700 Club. I've experienced a lot of healing, so I'm able to just talk about it. But for some reason, I kept tearing up, and I'm like, what's going on? And I believe it's because of the time that I'm in, this 12th year of my recovery. All of the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. Everything that has ever happened to me in my life now has meaning, and I see that it was part of a puzzle, and the pieces are all there now. And so this was so special to me. So I do not apologize if I become emotional. Okay, so you can put that in the evaluation. She became emotional. And my subtopic is you can rebuild her, you have the technology. And I'm here to tell you and challenge everyone here that you have the technology. You please view me as not an anomaly. I am not an anomaly. If you want to label me as the perfected franchise prototype, that I was sent here from Detroit to Grand Rapids as an experiment. And you people have done good work. And I'm going to show you what you've accomplished working with Anneshia Freeman when I came here from Detroit 12 years ago. First, I want to tell you about my childhood. This is a picture of me between the ages, somewhere between like 7 and 8. I was raised in a very abusive household. I'm not here to character assassinate my family because these issues are generational. My mother was mentally ill. She was an undiagnosed paranoid schizophrenic who was in the chronic stages. I'm the youngest of 9, and so she was in her mid-40s when she had me. And if people know anything about paranoid schizophrenia, it usually starts in the early 20s and progress and gets worse if untreated. She was not treated or diagnosed until I was an adult. And the only other family member, because all of my brothers and sisters left as soon as they could, the only other family member there was a pedophile. So my life, the first 12 years of my life, I lived in a torture chamber, literally. But there was something that was in the torture chamber that made it a little different. My mother was also a religious fanatic, so all of this stuff was done in the name of God. So I was really confused. But she would make me read the Bible literally for hours a day out loud. I could not go out inside and play with other children because she said their parents were evil, so they were the spawns of the devil. So I didn't have friends. I was not allowed to go outside. There was no television in our home. She said it was the devil's box. To this day, I am very glad there was no television. Even though I was not, I was in hell, literally, physically, sexually, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically abused. I learned how to read at a very early age. And if I came to a word I didn't know, she would come over and pronounce it out with me, and I had to say it, and she'd tell me what it meant, and then I had to keep reading. And so I had to do this literally for at least 2 or 3 hours every evening when I came home from school. And then I had to memorize passages out of the Bible. She had a Bible study in her home, and people from the church would come over, and she would make me come out and perform by reciting passages from memory to her friends. And they would give her claps and say she was doing a good job. So by the time I was 5, I could name every book of the Bible in chronological order. I can still do it. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st, 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Job, Psalm, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Songs of Solomon. I could do that to Revelation. And then she started making me memorize verses. And every day she would raise the requirement on how many verses I memorized until I was actually reciting chapters. And so even though my mother was mentally ill and she would be verbally abusing me, calling me names, telling me I would never be anything, this is stuff that was happened to her in Mississippi. My mother was from Mississippi. She came to Detroit by herself at the age of 13. She never would tell us what went on in Mississippi, but for a 13-year-old girl to leave the South and come to the North by herself, something bad was happening. And so I would read and recite these verses, and she would call me names, but while she was calling me names, I was reciting verses that were telling me that I was special, that I was chosen, she would be in the background saying that, and I would be memorizing the verses because her friends would be over that evening. I also was raised in Bethesda Missionary Temple. In the past, it was on Van Dyke and Nevada. In Detroit, it has now moved to Sterling Heights. I believe Perfecting now has that building there on the corner, but it was a large Caucasian church of upper middle and upper class Caucasians. And there were very few African Americans, and there's certainly the ones that were there were not poor. And so we were really a minority, a poor African American family attending this rich church. I had Sunday school teachers like the Pepperellis. The Pepperellis at that time owned Roma halls. I used to go over their home because my Sunday school teachers often gave functions at their halls or their homes. So I grew up seeing people going to homes with chandeliers and butlers and Olympic-sized swimming pools. My mother was a maid for the Bill family, who was the pastors of that church. So I grew up in two worlds. I grew up in poverty, then I would see wealth. I would be treated very badly at home, then I would be treated with love and dignity at the church. So I had this dichotomy of experiences growing up. That's why I believe they call me the locksmith today. I grew up experiencing the locks and the keys simultaneously. One thing, my mother, there was a radio in the home, and it stayed 24 hours on the Christian station. And so even after my molester would get through with me, when my mother was gone and this particular family member was babysitting me, I would go out and I would sit in front of the radio, and my favorite show was Aunt B, and there was a lady, and it would be like, tell me a story, Aunt B, Aunt B, and I would sit down and she would tell me a story, and because I had no television, my mind would visualize, and I would close my eyes and I would see the story in my mind. And I believe today that is why I'm so creative and why my mind is so strong and so powerful, because I had to use it to imagine. The TV did not create for me. I had to learn how to create my own images. And that's why I believe that I'm so innovative and so creative today, because I had to use my mind. The TV did not do the work for me. And so even though I had all of this abuse and dysfunction going on in my home, and I left my home when I was 12 and went out to the streets of Detroit, and I became addicted to drugs. I was seeking the absence of pain, and I had the predisposition of most of the other people in the drug houses, of physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. I went there seeking the absence of pain. But I'm here to tell you, please let me tell you that I am not an anomaly. I have met some of the smartest, most creative, most talented people sitting there strung out on drugs. If I could tell you about Felix, who was a comedian, Felix was so funny, we would give him crack to perform. If a crack addict give you some crack to do a stand-up comedy routine, you are very funny. And it's Felix would have us on the floor laughing. And then I come around and I look on TV and I see shows like The Last Comic Stand, and I turn it off. I'm like, you're not funny. Felix was funny. I remember going to one of the treatment centers, my many treatment center stays. There was they had talent night at Share House, and this young lady got up and sung the Stephanie Mills version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I have never in my life, and I've been around, I've lived all over this country. I've lived in Hawaii, and I've never heard anybody sing like that. But she was strung out on crack, and 2 weeks after we got out of treatment, we were both at the crack motel, and I remember looking at her saying, you are an opera diva. What are you doing here? I didn't know what my skill was. I didn't know what I had to offer to the world. But I'm telling you, I am not an anomaly. I have met geniuses sitting in a dope house, strung out, and most of it was from untreated trauma, because that's why I was there. Unaddressed, untreated trauma, a diagnosis that is not in our DSM-4, and there are people fighting to have it put in a DSM-5. Why do they have to fight to have trauma as a diagnosis? Because I was misdiagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic and put on psychotropic drugs. And every time they put me on a psychotropic drugs, I would stop because of the side effects. I was not a paranoid schizophrenic. I was smoking a large amount of crack. And if you smoke $400 worth of crack a day, you would hear voices and see things too. So I was even, the innate gifts and drives that were in me, they were there at the crack house. I have the gift of administration. I tried to take over the crack house. Every time I went in, I tried to unionize the addicts, and I tried to get all the prostitutes to go on strike. No, for better working conditions and things. And so the subcultures in Detroit were very glad when I stopped smoking crack, because I was causing a lot of problems. And the dope dealers, they would be like, Anneshia, we're going to have this conversation one more time. You are a crackhead. I am the dope man. This is my dope house, and so I didn't get it. So I left because, I told them, well, your customer service strategies are not very good, So I finally left, because I've been in this other world. And one thing I want to mention, back in my home, my brother, one of my older brothers, who happened to be, really one of my favorite brothers, he knew what was going on. But, back in those days, what happened in our home stayed in the homes. And he knew she was abusing me, and he would bring me books. So he started bringing me cartons and cartons of books to read, and I lived in those books. I've read every book that Sidney Sheldon ever wrote. And so he brought me The Other Side of Midnight and Rage of Angels and Windmills of the God. So even though I was in this home where I was being abused, I could escape into the books. So I've been all around the world. I've read books about people who built dynasties out of nothing. I learned about the principles of sacrificing for years to achieve a goal. I read about people who had lunch in London and breakfast in New York and traveled the world. And I would be in those places in my mind. Remember, no TV. So I could visualize what it was like to walk along this street in Paris. I was there. I was in Paris in the book. So all of my life, I've had these experiences. And that's why I was such a problem in the street, because I would see so much misinformation being distributed in the crack houses. And they would be talking about school like, oh man, it costs $50,000. You miss one day and they kick you out. And I was be like, that's not true. You know, because I had read, I had information. And I later found out that the information was being distributed that way on purpose to keep people trapped. And so there was time when there was threats on my life just because I represented new information in a place where information was not needed or necessary. They were trying to keep people enslaved. So I've been in and out of treatment centers, mental hospitals. The last treatment center for years, I lost count. Sometimes I tell people 15, I made that number up. I lost count. And so when I came, the last treatment center was in Chicago, Lakeshore Hospital. And I want to think that was a true model, and that was in 2000. And that was a true model of integrated care. They had a psychiatrist, a MSW therapist, an addiction counselor who was in recovery, a nutritionist, a medical doctor, and a nurse assigned to you. When you went in, they ran physical tests. They did a physical exam. They did a scan and to find out what your nutritional needs were. You went down to the cafeteria. You had a dot that said what your meal plan was, strategically designed to address the nutritional needs that were lacking in your body. That psychiatrist was the first ethical psychiatrist I had come across. He scratched off paranoid schizophrenic. He put down depression and substance use disorder. He took me off of the mental ward and sent me down to the co-occurring ward. He took me off the psychotropic drugs and put me on a mild antidepressant, and they started doing treatment. That is the first hospital where I have ever been treated for trauma. They have a lady that came in who was a trauma specialist, and she did psychodrama once a week, where she took us back into our childhood, and we reenacted traumatic experiences, and we faced the people who hurt us, and she walked us through it. And it was and you have to be very trained to do that, but she was trained. And when she left, the therapist came in and sewed us up. When I was out of order and doing what I usually do, which is become the president of the ward, every treatment center out here, and they made me residential staff or president of the ward because I was very articulate and I had secretarial skills from Detroit Business Institute. So they put me in the office and had me checking rooms and writing and performing groups, and I would be the first one high when I got out. And that they had a therapist, and the counselor there confronted me. He put me in the middle of the room and confronted me on that. He says, you're smart. You can articulate everything I say. You could run this treatment center, but you're going to be high if you don't do something, because I hadn't put anybody in the chair in trauma therapy. The next day, I put my mother in the chair, and I put my molester in the chair, and I left that hospital, and I've been clean ever since, and that's been 12 years. When I got clean, my family, as I say, I'm the youngest of 9, my sisters, I have this thing going on in my family. I don't know if anyone can relate. I have the bougie side of my family, the well-to-do, then I have the gangsters. And so my well-to-do side of my family, they decided to send me here to Grand Rapids. One of my other sisters had been living here for quite some time, and my oldest daughter was here, spent a lot of her teen years here, and had decided to live here as an adult. And so I was upset. They did this. They didn't tell me until my daughter was in the driveway that I was going to Grand Rapids, and she had drove up to get me, and I came down the stairs in my sister's house, like I just got out of treatment. I'm like, oh, da-da. They was like, Pack, you're moving to Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I was so upset. I'm like, Grand what? You know, I had never heard of Grand Rapids. You know, I cried all the way here. I'm a big city girl. My daughter was living in Kentwood at the time, so she got off the freeway, right? You know, I didn't see any of the inner city, and I was humming the Andy Griffin theme song, and I was like, this is terrible, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. My daughter and I, we didn't get along. You know, I had some unrealistic expectations about how my child, who I left at 7 and showed back up when she was 21, would relate to me, and even though I understood her pain and anger, I could not stay clean with her expressing her anger to me. I only had 2 months clean at the time. I went to a 12-step meeting and shared about what was going on with me and my daughter, and they told me about a recovery house. And I went and moved into this recovery house, and I lived there 2 years because I had been reduced to the animal level as it relates to life skills. I spoke fluent profanity. And this woman at this recovery house, she did something for me that I'm so glad. Even though she was a social worker, she did not use that self-determination, what do you want to do? She came in, when we came in, she told us what we were going to do. She said, I said I had, because I had disability. They had said I was insane, and they gave me a check for a long time. And so I still had my check. And she said, I could pay my rent. I could do anything I want. She said, not in my house. She said, this is not a flop house. She said, you wasn't disabled a couple of weeks ago when you were smoking crack. She said, you will not be disabled in my house. She said, you will work, go to school, or you will volunteer. And see, she reparented me. She gave me the correct amount of nurturing and accountability and structure that I needed. She nurtured me, but she didn't let me say what I wanted to do, because if she had asked me what I wanted to do, my distorted self-concept would have answered her. And so she told me what I was going to do. And so I went to school. Like George said, I found out my high school diploma, because I had worked in corporate America before I started smoking crack, Firestone corporate headquarters in Chicago. And then when I found out my high school diploma wasn't acceptable, they had accepted it at Detroit Business Institute. And so I went and got a GED. I got it immediately, 5 weeks. They would only let you take one test a week. So I knocked the test out. And I was getting ready for the last test, and a woman walked into the room in West Middle and sat next to me. And she said, I am here to sign you up for college. And she said it just like that. I didn't even know I had a choice. She didn't say, ma'am, my name is so-and-so, how are you? Are you interested? And she said, I'm here to sign you up for college. And I was like, okay. And she said, name. I said, Anneshia Freeman. She said, spell it. And she just filled out the paper. She did my FAFSA. She filled out the application. I didn't even know I had a choice. And so she said, what are you interested in? I said, oh, no. When I was at Firestone, they had this computer called the D Display Right 3. And she was like, computers, and signed me up. And so I was in college majoring in computer applications technology. And I went to Grand Rapids Community College, and I want to tell you that when I took the placement test, I didn't know what a negative number was. They had a test, they had a question on the test, 2 minus 10. I skipped it. I'm like, can't do that. Knock it off. I was like, boy, y'all almost got me with that one, boy. So, I was kind of behind, so I had some things that I had to learn, but GRC, Grand Rapids Community College, had all of the supports in place. They had a math lab, and for my first math class, it was on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9:40 to something, but I got there every Monday. I arrived at school every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 o'clock, and I sat in that math lab from 8 o'clock to 9:30, and then I went to my math class, and I got an A in that math class. And I want to show you, I scanned in one of my first little quiz papers. If you look at the top, you see the number line, because that's how the teacher taught me how to do negative numbers. Every paper I have from that class has a number line written at the top. He told me write 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I did it all the way around. Usually for most papers, this was a short one, but others all the way on the side to 20. He said, Anneshia, put your hand there at the 2. And if it's 2 minus 10, you count the 2 and you count 0 and start counting. So I did every question like, okay, 2 minus 10, I went 1, 2, 3. And some of the other kids would be sitting at the table looking at me, the traditional students, and would giggle. And I would be like, now I got to start all over. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Right? But I got an A in that class. And they had a math class, and and they had a math class, and they had a writing lab, and they had everything. And then I don't know how to get to it right now, so I'll get to it at the end. I'll show you the first paper I wrote for my English class. She did, and when the one that I'll show you, I scanned it in with her notes on it. This was after the third draft. She would not accept it until the third time I wrote it, and she still circled almost every other word in red. That was my first paper, but I graduated. I completed completed school in a year and a half with a 3.97. And you know, I was the first semester when I got all A's, I was sad. Then I said, well, maybe it was a fluke. And why would I be sad? Most people don't understand. Why wouldn't I be happy that I had for all A's? I was sad because someone had told me I was stupid and would never be anything all my life, and I believed them. So I had to grieve the 15 years of my life that I wasted standing on a corner in fishnet stockings. I had to grieve that. And then I said, well, maybe it was a fluke. And so the next semester I took 5 classes, and I got 5 A's. Then the next semester, I didn't know how to put the classes together, and I was scared to ask for help and stuff. And so I took all of the hardest classes at the same time, and I didn't know what I was doing. And people looked at my schedule like, are you insane? And I was like, I don't know. And then I went to systems analysis and for the first day and sat next to a young guy, and his schedule was there, and he had 8 classes. I said, you're taking 8 classes? He said, yeah, this is a 2-year college. I'm not going to be here 5 years. And I laughed, and him and some other people that I was on a team with was the best team experience I ever had in my life. We were all some nitpicky, workaholic, overachievers. It was awesome, the most beautiful experience I ever had in my life. And he helped me. A lot of people helped me at school, and I graduated. And a week, and one of my first internship for my associates was with Delta Strategy. And I had went in to apply for an on-campus job, but they didn't have, they told me for some strange reason I didn't qualify. And I'm like, okay. And so I was getting ready to leave, and something in my spirit said, tell them you'll work for free. And I stood up and I said, I'll work for free. And so they all came out of their office, Penny and Lou and Barnes, and they were like, okay. And so they let me out all over the city. I worked at United Way. I worked with Child and Family Resource and Delta Strategy. And I didn't know, I thought that I grew up in an environment where I had to perform for acceptance. So I was doing that at the internship. And I used to hear them whispering about me and looking at me. I thought they were saying I wasn't working hard enough. So I started working harder. And someone told me later, Anneshia, we were saying how amazing you were. And so I thought, they're going to get rid of me. So I started working harder. And they were going around bragging and telling people that they had this intern that was amazing, doing amazing work. And George Hartwell was at this one of the tables, and he needed an assistant because his assistant had just took another job. So I was able to get that job working as his assistant. And George was pushing me out of my comfort zone every day. Every day he had me do something, like he throw me the car keys, and he should go pick up so-and-so from the airport. And, you know, because I had a hoopty, so he wanted me to pick him up in his car. So, and I remember the first time I went out, because he had to show me which car was his. I never had a car with a remote. So I went out, I didn't know, he was showing me the car, he gave me the remote, I pushed the panic button, and I've never seen a panic button like this. The hood shot up, the trunk shot up, the horn started blowing, and the lights started flashing. And so I was thinking he's gonna be like, give me my keys, oh my goodness. And he was like, ha, ha, ha. That's the panic button, Anneshia. This is how, get out of here before you're late. And so I remember driving thinking, oh my goodness, I can make a mistake. I'm not a dumb door and a stupid hussy, because that's what I was growing up whenever I made a mistake. And that gave me permission to be creative. I already was creative, but that fear of punishment if I didn't do it right the first time was there, that wouldn't allow me to try new things. He opened up my eyes and said, I don't have to be perfect. I can make a mistake. I'm not stupid because I don't know something no one ever taught me. Because see, in my house, my mama would tell me common sense should have told you. So I always thought I was stupid because I thought I didn't know stuff other people knew. I didn't know you were supposed to be taught stuff. And so he started just the way he treated me. I worked for him, and then as he transitioned over to being the mayor, and I was only in the grant for 6 months as a full-time, and I had already been doing this educational group for the court for women who had issues with drugs and the street life. And I had an idea for a program, and George was like, Anneshia, we'll write the grant. And I was like, George, I don't know how to write a grant. And so he put a book in front of me, and the name of the book was How to Write a Grant. He said, you have 2 weeks to have a draft copy on my desk. George did stuff like that all the time. Every day I would drive to work like, because I never knew what he was going to do. You know, he was pushing, when he would leave and go away, me and Liz Keegan, my coworker, we would be turning desks on one leg, trying to get everything done before he came back, because he's always pushing us. And so I remember when I wrote the grant, and he said, okay, go get the money. Go down there and tell the court to give you some money enough to pay your salary. And I'm like, go what? No, you go talk to your friends over there at the foundation and have lunch, and then you come back with the money. This is how this works. And so George, by then, knew my story. I had shared with him and disclosed with him where I came from. And he said, Anneshia, what? I said, George, I can't go down there. That grant money is already designed for other programs and stuff, and I can't go. And I'm scared to go down there and talk to those people. He said, Anneshia, what did you do for 15 years? So I thought he was being cynical or taking a shot at me. So I said, you know what I did, George. I was a prostitute. He slapped the desk and said, go get the money. So I could relate to people talking to me like that. I was like, well, go on, pimp a daddy and pimp a down, man, you know. Because a lot of people don't know pimp is an acronym for power in manipulating people, but George introduced a new game, and I would say, America, you need to start pimping. Power in manipulating potential. That's the new game, and if you need a subtopic, China on the left, okay? Coming up in the number 2 spot on the left, we have China, being written by Tiger Mom, Pimp or Die. Huh? And George was pimping. And so then, so George took me over when he closed the community leadership. He took me to Arbor Circle, and I went under their umbrella. I've been there 7 years. I'm transitioning out within the next few weeks into my own consulting firm. I'm a little nervous. I've already got a lot of contracts. I've been doing consulting on the side since 2004, but I'm a little nervous. But I hear George saying, go get the money. So I'm going to go get the money. You've heard about the other accomplishments, my educational accomplishments. I have a bachelor's in business from Davenport. I'm a certified alcohol and drug counselor. I have a master's in business administration from Cornerstone. That was the toughest year of 18 months of my life. It was an accelerated program. And they told us when they started, kiss your kids goodbye, kiss your pillow goodbye. You getting ready to suffer. And we did suffer. That was a tough pro. I don't know what people think about Cornerstone. That was inhuman. I'll show you what it was ridiculous, but I did it, and I thank the YMCA, David Hunting, because they trained me before I go. When the YW closed their gym, I started going to the new David Hunting, and that's where I learned how to toughen up. I wanted my spin instructor. The first day I went in there, they said their class was 45 minutes. I'm used to an hour-long class at the YW, and it was tough. I went in there, I had no idea where I was at. I'm like, oh, you people, you amateurs. I'm fixing my bike like you amateurs. You got a 45-minute class. 5 minutes to the class, I was like, yeah. I had no idea that these were the people who did Ironman contests and triathlons and 25K runs. And I remember Jeff, the instructor, I've used his commands to accomplish everything I've done so far since then. The first day, when I was breathing like that, he got off his bike and stood up in front of me. He said, he said, you're not gonna die, you're just breathless. He said, it's just a feeling. He said, push through it. You will adjust to this level. It's just a feeling. Push through it. You got 10 seconds. Now give it to me. And I do that now when I have new places to go, new things to do, new challenges. I tell myself, Anneshia, what you feel is just a feeling. You're not going to die. Push through it. You will adjust to this level. You will learn. You will adapt. If you're going to adapt to the streets of Detroit, that jungle, you were out there when that man killed 17 girls, and you went out there every day, ready, like he just ain't met the right one. Right? You have to have that same attitude over here with the things that you need to do. Right now, I have my own program. I present at conferences. I'm training other professionals. I'm getting ready to certify professionals in my program methodology. They're going to be certified to do my work because the demand has grown beyond me. I work with the court. I work with the youth. I have the opportunity to take drug dealers, young people who are on probation for drug selling. I had the opportunity to take them to Chicago 3 consecutive years to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I'm telling them, if you can slang dope, and for those who don't know what slang means, it means sell. I'm telling you can slang dope. Let's go see people slaying corn. So I took them and let them watch people slaying corn, wheat, soybean, and pigs. I took them to the across the street to the Federal Reserve. I said, y'all killing each other for a piece of paper that they print and shred every day. I'm saying we have to find creative ways. We are missing a group of people. A lot of these programs do not take into account a certain population. I love Link because you're right in the heart of things, right there in the inner city where all of this stuff, you got some geniuses walking around with their pants hanging down, and they're imitating their atmosphere. It's the ecological perspective. It is person in environment. What do we think? People, children imitate their atmosphere. What do we expect from them if they don't? And please, if we have any therapists in here, start treating trauma, because I've assessed. I do formative years assessment. My program introduces people to their unconscious belief system. Everybody who goes through my program get their unconscious belief system on 4x7 laminated cards. I go and I find their unconscious syntax errors. They get the dysfunctional code on the front. They get the proper way to think on the back. And so many of these women that I've been assessing, and close to 200 over the past 9 years, so many of them, they're different race, different creed, different socioeconomic background, but all of them have one thing in common: untreated trauma. And that's why some of the girls, even that came from the upper middle and middle class families, are swinging on a pole at deja vu, untreated trauma. And I would get to a point where these girls were straight A students doing good, and then some trauma happened and it was never addressed. And then people put them on all these medications. Some people need, I'm a therapist, some people my mama need medication. Some people need medication, but we have too many people that we are medicating who have trauma. We are medicating trauma and finding some diagnosis for their behavior to fit into in a DSM-4. I could go around this room and I could diagnose all of us with something if I just wanted to follow the criteria, the DSM-4. It's untreated trauma for a lot of people. So one of the things that I understand is that the most useful piece of learning, I love this quote, for the uses of life, is I help people unlearn stuff. You already have the programs in place where you're teaching people stuff. I help them unlearn stuff. I introduce them to their unconscious belief system that's making their budget and their schedule. And then I can send them over there to you and let you teach them. They got too much stuff on the dish. You got to get something off. I introduce people to the first generation college students that I mentor. I introduce them to their unconscious belief systems that make learning hard. All of my girls go on tours of the colleges and they graduate. And over the 9 years, not only have they graduating with associates and bachelors. I haven't had a master's yet from our program, but I'm mentoring, but they're bachelors. These are girls that stood on the corner for years that never had a job. Some of them came from some very nice neighborhoods, but they had a drug problem, and they are now in college. But I teach them their belief system that makes college hard. Okay, and I want to start training colleges about these unconscious belief systems, because the teachers, there's some unconscious teaching lies, because I've had some great professors. I got an A from Dr. Greensmith here. That's an accomplishment. Okay, but I've had some teachers I'm like, are you serious? Just because a person has a PhD in math doesn't mean they know how to teach math. Okay, this is my bachelor's graduation picture. I was too busy working on my bachelor's to go to my associates, so that's the only one I was too busy. I'm like, I don't have time. It's not on the schedule, right? And so this is me graduating with my master's in business administration. This is me graduating this past May with my master's in social work, and I have to teach or give them a lot of money back, so I guess I'm going to teach. These are some of my things presenting at different conferences. I'm also an evangelist, so I do a lot of stuff. I have a column. I'm now a published author. I will be doing a book signing here after sometime during the break. I put together a lot of my columns that I've written over the past year and a half in the Grand Rapids Times. I put them together in a book. I'm also starting to release my program in modules. This is literacy, you guys. You're seeing the fruit of literacy. You're seeing the fruit of someone reading for a couple hours, even if it was just dysfunctionally done. This is the fruit of someone reading for hours every day. This is just one of my program modules that I'm releasing because, see, I wrote this is the program. So, okay, I put this together after reading a couple books about psychology before I ever went to school. And whenever I present this at universities across the United States, I'm the highest rated presenter from international level, PhD level clinicians. And so I'm telling you that reading makes a profound difference in a person's life. Okay, and their comprehension level, all of that is so very important. So this is my closing closing statement, I love this. Man's mind, once stretched by a new ideal, never regains its original dimension. I can never unlearn the stuff that I learned in school. And even though I was addicted to crack, even though I was on street, you know, I would walk down the stroll with a book in my hand. Literally, people could tell you that who knew me in Detroit. I would be on Woodward Avenue, and I would have, you know, my little bag with my little stuff in it, but it was a book in there. And there was times where I would be in the doorway with my book, reading, standing on the street, because I could escape where I was in that book for a few minutes. So if I didn't have crack to escape, I would use the book to escape for a few minutes. It was a coping mechanism. And so I just want to end by showing you a couple of the papers, just let you look at them while I scroll through them really quick. I'm not sure where they're at. The Word document, okay. MBA, I want to know more. Okay, this is my the paper, the first one. Can you see that good? Okay, this is the first one I wrote, and I don't know if you can see her circles. This is after she wouldn't accept it 3 times. So this is my very first paper, and I got 38 out of 50, and I was so happy. I'm like, yay, 38, oh my goodness, right? And so then that was one, and here's one. This is my final paper from my managerial accountant for my MBA. This was the break class. You know, they always have a class that breaks, find out whether you can make it or break it. This was the class. We thought it was going to be quantitative analysis. This was the class where we lost 1/4 of our cohort. They changed their major. This class, the people were talking about going to the dean with a petition because the work, no, for real. They were starting a petition. And I was like, you probably need to take your laptop so you can do some of your work while you're waiting to talk to the dean, because I have a feeling, I had a sneaky suspicion that they weren't going to make any changes. So, you know, just want to scroll a little bit through it and let you just see some of the work that a person can come from that very first paper that you saw to doing this analysis. I compared Walmart and Target for my final project, and the criteria was stringent that you had to meet for this final project. And I was so very proud to be able to do this particular paper. And like I say, I got A's, straight A's all the way through this particular class. And this was a class that made a lot of people leave the MBA program and change to master's in another field. Okay, and then I just really briefly want to show you my final paper from Dr. Greensmith here at Grand Valley. Dr. Greensmith is a legend. People were like, you got an A from Dr. Greensmith. You know, she's the type of person who checks your references. Like your APA, she actually will go through all 5 pages of your references and tell you if there's a space where there shouldn't be a space or a colon where there should be a comma, and she will circle it in red and make a note about it, and you might lose some points. And so I got an A from her twice. And so just showing you that if you have the right supports in place, a person can go from not knowing what a negative number was to actually having the type of work that I've had a couple of my professors say, can I share a copy of this with my colleagues? And so I don't take the credit for this. I came here speaking fluent profanity, dressing very provocatively like I did on the streets, not knowing how to interact socially appropriately. And I want to tell you that you have the technology. Grand Rapids, you have the technology. You helped turn me into a published author, a business owner, a career woman. You have the technology. Thank you for letting me share my story with you.
I pulled up every PowerPoint except for mine. While I'm looking for my PowerPoint, Anneshia, thank you so much for speaking to us today. Your story of rehabilitation speaks to the coalition in a way that I don't think anyone in our community could speak to it. You mentioned so many organizations that are represented today, all sorts of wonderful supports for literacy and trauma. Thank you. It was wonderful to have you, and you also, Barbara O'Brien. Thank you. My fingers are shaking a little bit more than I expected, so it's going to take a moment. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm Lindsay McComb. I'm the Community Literacy Liaison for the Community Literacy Initiative. I'm just going to speak about 10 to 15 minutes about the Community Literacy Initiative today, and then I'll hand it over to Jesse Hertstein. And it'll be your turn to speak with the people sitting next to you to talk about some of the things that you've learned today from our keynote speakers. And then we'll send you off for a bit for lunch so you can look outside and enjoy the art prize fun. And then we'll come back to a wonderful set of breakout sessions. So if you're not familiar, the Community Literacy Initiative, or CLI as we call it, is a literacy coalition that seeks to empower parents, residents, and leaders to improve literacy for all ages in West Michigan. If you are here today, you are part of the coalition. You don't have to pay dues. You don't have to call me to ask to be a part of the coalition. You are a part of the coalition because you're here learning and working toward improving literacy in our community. We launched the coalition in October of 2011, and almost 100 leaders were there at that public launch. And we were really excited to get going, and we weren't quite sure how we were going to end up this year. And this is the culmination of all the work that we've done over the year. So we're very excited that you're here with us today to celebrate the work that we've done. CLI is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and the Doug and Maria DeVos Foundation. And we're also evaluated by Western Michigan University. It's very important to our WMU evaluators that at the end of the day today, you take the time to fill out the evaluation sheet that's in your folder in the back. You have already met Susan Leedy, our president CEO of the Literacy Center, and me. And then the other staff for CLI is Kristen Brace. Kristen, if you could wave to everyone. I'm sure all of you have received plenty of emails and phone calls from Kristen, and she's been a tremendous help over the past year. I couldn't have done it without her. She's amazing. And then I have a beautiful group or advisory council that volunteers their time to advise me and what we're doing through the coalition. My two advisory council co-chairs are Tony Campbell and Jesse Hertstein. If you can wave for me, please. And if you are an advisory council member, if you could stand up for us, please, for right now. I know some of you are here, and if we could give them a round of applause. Thank you very much for your support. And I also have two wonderful literacy champions Mayor Hartwell had to take off, and Bing Goy is going to speak a little while later, but Bing, if you could raise your hand for us as well. Thank you so much for all of your support. So this year, the Community Literacy Initiative has focused, along with Believe to Become, in the Central and West Hope Zones. Next year, or starting in 2013, we'll be focusing on the East Hope Zone and continuing our work in the other zones. And then we'll move on to the South Hope Zone, and then from 2015 to 2020, we'll expand into West Michigan as appropriate. Using some of the models and some of the things that we've learned throughout the years in the Hope Zones. If you're not familiar with the Hope Zones, you can go to the Community Research Institute's website, and they have demographics and maps on the website, and you can learn more about those Hope Zones there. Now, this looks like a lot, and I'm not going to go over all of this, but what I did want you to know is that we have been working really hard this year on putting together a strategic plan for the community literacy initiative, and we recently met as an advisory council to discuss our goals and strategies and objectives for this year, and we're hoping to put together something for next year in the next few months. So I wanted to go over just our 4 main goals, and then I'll show you a few slides kind of celebrating some of the things that we did already this year. Our first goal was to evaluate, monitor, and measure results. Now, this is an outcome that hasn't quite come to fruition yet, but as many of you, I'm sure, have received calls from us asking for data and asking for information from your organization, we are pulling together a benchmark literacy data report that we will publish and report to the community, literacy data for all ages. We're very excited about that, and if we haven't contacted you and you think you have some great literacy data that could inform the work that we do in our community, please contact me or Kristen or Susan, and we would love to highlight that in our report. The second goal that we're working on is providing resources and building capacity. And the strategies we're using for that are conducting place-based community needs assessments, which we do at our neighborhood literacy forums, communicating literacy opportunities, and seeking out and sharing successful literacy practices locally and nationally, which is one of the reasons why we had Barbara O'Brien here today. Our third goal is to advocate for community literacy. So we appointed 2 literacy champions to advocate for literacy in the community in ways that I can't do it because I'm young and this is my first year. Raising awareness of literacy issues through involvement in the community. I know many of you just because I've been at a booth at almost every single festival in the community throughout the year, and so has Kristen. And so we try to reach out as much as possible, and if you have a venue that you think or a meeting that you think that we should be a part of, please let us know. We'd love to talk with you about that. And then establishing and sharing literacy talking points and consistent messaging, which is something that our advisory council is working diligently on right now. And then our fourth goal is to grow collaborations and partnerships, which we try to do in everything that we do through CLI. We seek out and participate in diverse communities. We're involved in the campaign for grade level reading. We maintain a representative advisory council. We try to keep an advisory council that represents different sectors in the community, but also represents people who have been a part of Greater Grand Rapids Reads in the past, and to convene literacy providers. So in a nutshell, that's our strategic plan. If you have questions, please contact us during the break about that. I don't have too much time to talk about it, so what I'd rather do is kind of brag about some of the things we've done this year. So many of you who are here today hosted a neighborhood literacy forum in one of the Hope Zones this year. We put on 10 forums this year with 114 unique participants. Several of you attended more than 1, more than 5 of them. And some of the organizations, not all of them, that hosted were United Church Outreach Ministry, the Hispanic Center of Western Michigan, the Department of Human Services, Link Community Revitalization, Baxter Community Center. Thank you if you did host a forum. We very much appreciate it. We did recently publish an online bilingual community literacy directory, and I wanted to show you quickly. If you don't know about it, we are so excited because we just posted this, and every organization that provides literacy is welcome to put their information in this directory. All you need to do is go up to this tab that says Request for New Organization. You can put your information in, and as soon as Kristen and I see that request, we'll approve you, and you can put all of your class times, the ages that you serve. You put it in English, and then the Hispanic Center of Western Michigan will translate it into Spanish for you, so that your clients can look up information for their children or for themselves in in Spanish. So we're very excited about that, and we're hoping to do a public launch for that in the future, but we wanted to share that with you now since we had you all gathered here. Let's see here. We did work with 25 partner organizations in Grand Rapids and Kent County and submitted a community solutions action plan for the campaign for grade level reading, which Barbara O'Brien is a part of. And we did, as a community, receive a Pacesetter Honors Award. If you'd like to learn more about the campaign, you can go to gradelevelreading.net. Our Community Solutions Action Plan is all around early readiness, school attendance, and summer learning, which are the 3 pillars of the campaign. Of course, one of the wonderful outcomes of the initiative this year is this summit. We have 17 successful practices putting on breakout sessions, so we hope that you can stay for the entire day. And we just loved our keynote speakers and learned from them, and we also have the Right to Literacy scroll, so we're very excited about that. And thank you for attending and helping our year to be successful. And of course, our literacy champions and my advisory council members have advocated for literacy throughout the year at their different organizations and in the community, and we very much appreciate that. And looking forward, over the next year, we're looking toward collective impact toward improved literacy for all ages in West Michigan. So thank you for attending today, and I am going to give it up to Jesse Hertstein, who is the co-chair of the Community Literacy Initiative Advisory Council.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so before I bring us into our next exercise, I just want to say thank you to Lindsay, thank you to Kristen, to Susan. They're doing some amazing heavy lifting, both at the community strategic level and then really at the grassroots level too. And Lindsay talks about how she attends a lot of events and she's hosted a lot of forums too to bring you together. There's a lot that's gone on in this last year, and some of it we've made up as we've gone along, but between the work that they're doing, the advisory council, Tony Campbell, co-chair with me, and our literacy champions, it's just incredible to see the amount of work that's happened and the progress that we've made just in a short time. So my name is Jesse Hertstein. I work at Amway, and I serve on both the Literacy Center of West Michigan Board of Directors and then co-chair of the Community Literacy Initiative. And in my day job, I work on the Amway 1x1 campaign for children, which has taken me around the world, and I've seen a lot of incredible work in lots of different communities. And there's certain themes that are consistent that I see out there for things that work, and they're the sort of themes that I'm seeing really come together in this initiative. Things like a disciplined approach to a common cause, or the collaborative nature of people coming together to use all their skills and expertise and their passions to help others in their community. And passion itself, I mean, can you get much more passion than Anneshia gave us today? And passion for an issue that is so important. So it's exciting to see that, but at the same time, there's so much more to learn and so much more to do. So what my role here is to give you guys a gift, and that's just the gift of time. We're going to take the next 10 minutes or so just for table discussions. You should have a purple paper at your desk, 2 of them, except for our table because I stole ours. And there's 2 questions on there, real basic questions. First one is, what is the most useful thing that you learned from our keynote speakers? And the second one is, how can you use what you learned today to improve literacy in your community? So we're going to take the next 10 minutes. If one of you could volunteer to be the facilitator and jot down some notes, we'd ask you at the break to drop these off at the registration table. And this was really just a time that we can synthesize what we've heard and internalize it before we go on to the next speakers, next breakout sessions that will fill up our day. So we have about 10 minutes, and then Bing Goey will come up to advance us to the next part of our program. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention for a few minutes, please. My name is Bing Goey. I'm the CEO of Eastern Floral here in Grand Rapids. We are a floral company with 7 locations in West Michigan. And I will tell you that I am so honored to have been asked by Tony to be a champion for literacy here in Grand Rapids and in West Michigan, and especially to be partnered with my good friend Mayor Hartwell. We have a long history of working together on many ventures and projects, and it's been fun being his partner in this particular effort. You know, I've been called to ask you to call to a call to action, and I had this whole speech written out. You know, when you get to be a political figure at some point, hopefully, tried several times. But, you know, when after listening to the speakers here today, they have called us to action. I don't need to call you to action. They have called us to action. John Helmholtz said that you are the lifeblood. Well, you are. Each one of you in this room is going to be the key strategy for us to be able to continue the work that Susan and her staff has already started in bringing our literacy level to a level that enables our children to have a future. You know, this is not about anything about feeling good. It's not about a political issue. This is a human issue. We are called to gather to raise the quality of life for every individual in this community. And then you hear, you know, our Barbara talk about the need for having a high literacy level. And I, as a business owner, understand what she's talking about. Because you see, we can talk about economic development and job growth and job creation, but you can't do that without a good educational system. And having people and children being able to have an ability to be able to read and to be able to grow in terms of their proficiency at all levels. And I guess if I'm going to call you to action, let me just call you to action in this very simple way. Your work, our commitment, when we do it right and when we do it with passion, you know what that will bring us? It will bring us more Anneshia Freemans. That's the call. Because every one of us, every child, has a potential. And we have to stop thinking that we know what that potential is. And by making assumptions by the way they dress, by their skin color, by their gender, by all these idiotic things that we do in our society. We need more Anneshia Freemans because we want to live in a society that is rich. And so, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time of your busy schedule to be here today, to make a commitment that every child has value, that every child deserves the opportunities. And so the call to action today is let's commit to each other and to this community that we will go forward from this day on and to challenge our sphere of influence, our friends, our family, and our community, that we cannot just talk about literacy, but that we must pursue the action steps that's needed to enable our society, to enable our children to have a future. So thank you so much for being here, and let me, like someone said, you're the last person between food and this audience. end my comment by saying this. You see the instructions here. The only other instructions that I've been asked to give to you is that for those of you who ask for a special lunch, please go to the registration desk, and they will instruct you how to receive that. Again, on behalf of the center, thank you so much for being here, and please stay for the workshops. They are going to be incredible workshops. Now, I will apologize ahead of time. I'm on my way to Lansing. I'm meeting with the Michigan Economic Development Commission people to talk about how to create more small businesses, especially those in the minority communities for Grand Rapids and West Michigan. Thank you again.
Years, and I want to share that with you. Is that better? Okay, so this is me, and here we go. So like I said, I work for Bethany Christian Services, and what we're trying to do is link refugees. We work with adult refugees. When they come, we resettle them, but we like to link them with as many people in the community as possible, with churches, employers, and all kinds of other resources, because they need to be self-sufficient very quickly, 4 to 6 months, okay? So imagine you're dropped off, plunk in the middle of China. You don't know the culture, you don't know the language, you don't know the writing system. Get a job, right? Be self-sufficient, and you don't know anything. So it's a big challenge for these people. They're wonderful people, wonderful to work with. So this part of my presentation is a bit of a background, and then I'll get into the literacy, okay? So bit of a background. Okay, so what is a refugee? It's someone who's been forced to flee his or her country because of a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. A refugee either cannot return home or is afraid to do so. Okay, and this is the usual quote that they gives from the 1951 Convention on Refugees. So the UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, they're in charge of a lot of refugees, the ones that register with them. They ensure welfare and protection for them. And it was set up in 1951. So here's kind of what's happening in the world of refugees right now. I updated some of these stats, so a few of you have seen this presentation. I went on the website and I'm like, oh, I gotta get I had 2009 stats. So 10.5 million refugees right now who are registered with UNHCR. There's more than that out there. There are a lot that aren't registered. There's a lot of internally displaced persons as well. They have fled from their city or where they're living to another part in their country. In the Middle East, there's another organization that also takes care of Middle Eastern refugees, so there's many more people than that. So each year, a presidential bill sets the ceiling on refugee entries, and for this year, it's 76,000. So that's the ceiling. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll get 76,000. It's somewhere in that ballpark, okay? The US is the world's leader in third country resettlement, and I looked at the list of who else takes in refugees, and it was very surprising to me which countries do and do not. Canada takes some, the UK, New Zealand, Australia, but a couple Scandinavian countries as well. So it's a very surprising list. And there's only like 15 other countries in the world that take refugees in. I thought countries all over the world took them, but no, they don't. Michigan takes in about 2,500 refugees and in 2011. And yeah, only 1%, less than 1% of refugees are ever resettled in a third country. The rest are sitting in limbo in refugee camps and being moved to different places. So, okay. So back to Bethany Christian Services. There are 2 resettlement agencies in the Grand Rapids area. We have Lutheran Social Services and we have Bethany Christian Services. We both do resettlement. Bethany also has the contracts for unaccompanied minor resettlement. So those are children who have been separated from their parents. They don't know where they are, or maybe their parents have been killed. We also have mental health services. It's in jeopardy right now of stopping, and Anneshia, well, the other speaker, she had talked about trauma. A lot of the refugees have had trauma and they need counseling for it. And for us to lose this program would be very, very bad. We have refugees who come in weekly for counseling sessions. And then what I work for is the employment services. We are trying to get jobs for refugees in the Grand Rapids area. And my job is to teach them English to improve their literacy. And the rest of my team's job is to get jobs for refugees. So, okay, so other key players, we do not do this alone. It takes, right, a nation to resettle refugees. There are many other adult ESL programs in the Grand Rapids area. Schools, Grand Rapids Public Schools, Kentwood Public Schools, Wyoming Public Schools, they're all helping the children, and they also have adult education programs. Beckwith is the adult program for Grand Rapids Public Schools, and then Wyoming Community Education does the for adults in Wyoming. There are churches, volunteers, other nonprofits, the health department. We've really gotten involved with them lately. We have a new health grant. I guess I should have added that to that. A lot of our refugees have never been to the doctor or to a dentist, and so they have ongoing chronic health conditions. They're all screened before they come over, so they do see a doctor there, but they have chronic conditions that need attention. Employers, we have partnered with a lot of employers. They have to have a heart for refugees. A lot of employers, they don't really want to hire people who can't read or write, but we've made good partnerships with some, and it's been great that people are getting jobs and starting to become self-sufficient. So, who are coming right now? This changes depending on the world situation. So most of my students are from Burma, also known as Myanmar. There's a lot of them who, fresh trauma. Some of them have been in Malaysia, some of them have been in Thailand, some of them have just been fleeing and living in a jungle. We have Bhutanese refugees, they're Nepali speakers, and that situation's been going on for 15 or 20 years. The Bhutanese refugees are a more homogeneous group. They are Nepali culture, they speak Nepali. The Burmese, there's 50 different dialects and tribes, so they all speak Burmese, not all of them. Most of them speak Burmese as their national language, but there are also many other different languages that they speak, so their culture and their language is not homogeneous, so they're a little harder to work with in that respect. We also have some Iraqis. They've been more urban refugees, so they're used to living in apartments or houses and driving cars and having a job, whereas my Burmese and Bhutanese may not have had that experience. Africans, Sudan has had a situation going on, Somalia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the other Congo, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and then we can also serve Cubans. They're called parolees. They haven't been in jail, don't worry. So we get them as well. So those are my students. Okay, so map of the world, show you where things are. So Burma's here, Bhutan, Bhutan is up here. It's right above India. Africa's here, Sudan, Somalia here, Iraq, oh no, where did it go? It's over here somewhere. It's hard to see on this map like this. And then Cubans, of course, are from over here. Did I get them all? So, all right. So the world comes to me every day in my program. Okay, so we've been resettling about 150 to 200 refugees a year since 1999 in the Grand Rapids area. And the employment program, they have to be refugees who have been in the country less than 5 years. Once they're more than 5 years, then they have to go through Michigan Works or some other service to get help with jobs. So what do we do? Case management, the vocational English language training, which I do, job skills training, we do interpretation, help them with transportation, with childcare, job search, and it's a federal grant that's administered by the state of Michigan. So, okay, so I hold classes at Grand Rapids International Fellowship Church. It's turned out to be a big program. And this is another partner that we have. They set up a 501c3 nonprofit outreach organization, and we work with them. They host us. It's a great facility. We have classrooms, a gymnasium. It's wonderful. So this fall, well, in the summer, I had 80 to 90 students coming every day, and 15 to 25 children. We have a nursery and we have a preschool. So we have 3 classes, a level 1, a level 2, an elders class for our refugees who are 60 years old and up. They're not really looking for a job, but they still would like to learn some English. For them, it's the first time they've ever been to school. We have an immigrant class, Community Link, the church there. They are in charge of that. Then we have a child care ESL class. It's a group of women who want to learn how to be child care providers. They're learning some of the skills and some of the laws, and so that they can take children into their own homes and get paid to do that or to work in a daycare center. And then we're starting this. It starts, I believe, on Monday, a pre-GED class. When you flee your home, you do not think to take your high school diploma with you, and a lot of them don't have it. So we are starting to work towards getting some of our clients GED. So we have the nursery and the preschool for all these students who come. So the age range is from 18 to 65 years old. It's year-round, and it's 8 hours a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 to 11. So that's what I do. I'm in charge of the ESL there. These are just some pictures of our classes. So this was our level 1 class. So you can see a mix. We have some Cubans in the back, some Africans, Burmese in the front. Any Bhutanese in this class? Yeah, she's Bhutanese, I think. So great bunch. This was my class. They get kind of big, and it's an ongoing enrollment of students throughout the years. So some drop out and some join us. So, and then our elders class. I love this picture because of the 2 guys in the back row. We got a Bhutanese guy with his arm around a Burmese man. They have a great community together. They love to come. Best attendance in our whole program. They come every day without fail. It's awesome. I have people with perfect attendance. That's unheard of in a lot of ESL programs. But these people, I have to decide who's my student of the month. They all have such great attendance. So they just love coming. It's at a slower rate for them. They were feeling like they were holding back some of the younger people, and they do different topics because they're not looking for a job, so they can, just work together. And so it's really cute. My volunteers who come, have you been in there yet, Nicole? No. I have Grand Valley students and Calvin students. They all start to fight me. Can I go in the elders class? So we'll get you in there soon. So, okay, so this is why we're here, literacy. So literacy in the first language, the L1, affects literacy and language acquisition in the second language, the L2. So the L2 is the English. I have very, very diverse students. They come with many abilities and life. Ooh, why did that happen? Shutting down, logging off. What? I didn't do it. It's updating? Okay, do not turn off your computer. Okay. So my students are very, very diverse. They have many, many life experiences that you or I cannot even imagine. And it's a challenge for some of them to attend. Absenteeism in the adult programs is, there's a lot of absenteeism. Is it gonna work? Starting Windows. So I gotta hit the button? Oh, you're right, I don't have a plug. I've lost power, that's the problem. All right. Watch my time here. So, as we have learned, ability to read is crucial. To learn a second language, if you can read, you are miles ahead. Miles and miles ahead. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. There we go. So why do adult refugees need to improve their literacy? Many, many reasons. This is just the tip of the iceberg. In my world, all my coworkers are like, the biggest barrier to our clients getting a job is that they can't read and they can't speak English. So they're putting all the pressure on me. Make them read, improve. I'm trying my best. So, but yeah, to obtain and retain employment, we had a whole bunch of people working who were let go because the employers said, oh, well, they really can't read. And they let like 30 of them go. It's like, oh. And they were doing a fine job, but they made this decision. So also to improve their employment situation. I mean, we get them jobs. We have a place in Plainwell. It's a slaughterhouse. They chop up beef, and it's actually a fairly good paying minimum wage job, and they get benefits. But do they want to be doing this the rest of their life? No, they want a job ladder. They want to improve their employment situation, right? They want to become, line supervisor or whatever. If you don't have literacy, you don't have a chance. To be better parents for the children, we heard about, parents reading to their children, and notes come home from school, and attending parent-teacher conferences. If you can't read a note that comes home from school, you miss all that, and you need literacy to help your children, for your children's future. To socially integrate in the new country. A lot of my refugee students, they won't talk to average Americans. We say, oh yeah, just go talk to the bus driver, or go talk to the lady at Meijer. They won't, but they need English and literacy so that they can start doing that to improve their English. To improve their health, we talked about this already, that their health situation is poor. If they go to the doctor, they don't understand the doctor, they get a prescription, they don't understand how to take it. It's crucial to have literacy. And to become a US citizen. The elders class, for them to get Social Security benefits, they have to become US citizens. And so after 5 or 10 years, they can take the test, but if they're still not reading or writing, it's a big challenge for them to take the citizenship test. So, and then they can vote and all that kind of thing. So, and for them, they don't have a country. Their citizenship has been ripped from them, and they would love to be citizens of a country, to have that back. And they need reading and writing in order to do that, so, and many other reasons. So this is the big part of my presentation. This was really eye-opening for me when I read this, because I've got all these students, and they all are so diverse. So I'm going to go into detail about each of these 6 categories here. So we have pre-literate, non-literate, semi-literate, non-alphabet literate, non-Roman alphabet literate, and Roman alphabet literate. I have these for you. So the next slide. So we'll start with this. Should I give this to you now, or are you going to be reading and not looking at me and listening to me? So, I only have 20. We can share. We can share? I've been So when I look around my classroom and I see all these different people, they all come to me with different abilities. I have a few of these students. The Somali Bantu people fit in this category, and maybe some other Africans. They're from a language that has not yet been written or has just been written, and so literacy doesn't really exist for them. They don't understand even what it means. They need tons of exposure to literacy. The students progress very, very slowly. They have to repeat over and over the same level. They're unfamiliar with school culture. They do not have school skills. They cannot hold a pencil. They don't know what it means to sit in class. They don't know what a book is. They don't know page numbers on a book. They just have not been exposed to it, you know? In the US, I mean, we walk in any room and there's written stuff everywhere. To them, that's just gobbledygook. It's just nothing. It's no meaning to them. So this is a very hard group to work with. Like I said, I probably have had a few, and I probably haven't even known that I had these students. So I mostly have this group. So the non-literate. There is a written form but the student hasn't been to school. They have had no literacy instruction. They've never had a book read to them. They may not have been to school, due to war or poverty, no school skills, but they've seen it. So they know there's some value to it, and they know people in their language group who can read and write, and so they kind of know about it. These are some of my Burmese and Bhutanese refugees. So, and then the other group is my semi-literate, and I have a lot of these too. We do an intake form when we get new students. We ask them, have you been to school before? And a lot of them say no, but some of them say yes, but it's only 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So they've had some schooling, maybe in the refugee camp, in poor conditions, with not enough books and not enough papers and not enough pencils, and the teachers aren't trained that well. So yes, they've had some schooling. They have a few school skills, but their education is by no means complete. If you took a child in grade 2 or 3 here, are they literate? Yeah, not quite. Could they survive the rest of their life in U.S. culture with that much? No. So I have a lot of these in my class too. This group, these would be more in the immigrant class, Vietnamese, Chinese, and Japanese. They're fully literate, but their alphabet is a logographic alphabet. So each symbol represents a word. It's not like sounding it out like we do, right? So they need to learn the alphabet and the sound syllable correspondences of English. So I've had a couple of Vietnamese students, actually refugees, but not very many of them. So, and then the non-Roman alphabet literate. So the Arabic, Nepali, Burmese languages, and the Thai languages. So they have 8 to 10 years of school, but they don't know their ABCs. They don't know the sound symbol correspondences again. The Arabic students write right to left. And this was interesting. The Nepali students can be distracted by L2 letters that go below the line. So they're getting meaning out of the tails of our alphabet. So they get distracted by that. So they have to learn the alphabet. So we have to start them with ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. So I have a lot of these students as well. And then this last group, Roman alphabet literate, and they're the easiest to work with because they know the ABCs. The Spanish alphabet's slightly different, so that's a hitch. And then because there's cognates, sometimes that's difficult. And also with the French and with the Spanish, because they're kind of the same, but not the same, the students get confused with the sound. They have no confidence in saying the alphabet because it's the same, but it's different sound. So they're a lot of fun to work with. I was talking with Susan earlier. I had a lot of Congolese students who spoke French, and they just took off. And now I've had to send them off to Beckwith in Wyoming because they've advanced out of my program because they could read. So that's the big thing. They can read. They're educated. The Cubans, they usually have at least grade 12 plus some training. So if they come as adults, they're already well on their way. They just need to learn English and learn those sound symbol correspondences. So I thought this was eye-opening. If you are in an ESL program and you have a bunch of refugees, you have to think to yourself, where do they fit in this scheme? So, okay, so what do adult students need to do to improve literacy? So this is just a bunch of general advice here for you. They need comprehensible input. We need to make it so they understand what we are saying to them. Explicit teaching. They need details explained to them. Teach in context. Grammar rules and vocab lists out of context are not that great. It's better to do it in context. They need lots of vocabulary, definitely, but in context. So my program is an employment program, so I'm supposed to teach about different aspects of employment, so the vocab I'm teaching them will be about a job situation. Authentic language, we talk real fast, we talk short, you know, what's your name? You know, it has to be authentic. What is your name? They're not going to hear that out in the public. They're going to hear, what's your name? All squished together. So it has to be authentic, whole language learning, holistic approach. They need all of these skills. This is the other big point of my presentation here. They need listening, speaking, reading, and writing all in the same lesson because you have those 6 categories of students. The people who cannot read need to hear it. Oh, what is going on? I'm not moving enough. They need to see it, they need to hear it. And those who can read or write need to have it written and have the ability to write themselves. They also need community in the ESL classroom. You can see from my elders class, they have a great community there, and their attendance goes up when that happens. They need a safe place to try out the new language. My students are comfortable with me, so they talk to me, but they go somewhere else and they won't speak any English. My caseworker's like, no, he can't speak any English. And then I come in and I give him an assessment test. I'm like, he scored perfect on it. He knows some English. Oh, really? I'm like, yeah. Just not asking the right questions, no. They need meaningful interaction and with teachers and other students, and they need group and pair work. They're adults, they're not children, that whole thing, and yet you're almost teaching some of them kindergarten, first grade levels, you know, literacy type activities, so they need feedback, so lots of praise. So here are problems, some of them. This is tip of the iceberg. The attendance we've talked about. They don't practice at home. They come 2 hours to my class in the morning and then they go to their apartments in their communities and they don't speak any English. And then I have a revolving door of students coming in and leaving me. All of a sudden, where'd he go? I don't know. And then you hear 2 weeks later, oh, he moved to Wisconsin. Oh, okay. So, this was also eye-opening. You need 666 hours of instruction to obtain proficiency in English. 660. My 8 hours a week is hardly scratching the surface. So we're increasing that to 16 hours a week in January. We have a new grant, and I'm excited for my students that they will have more exposure. It is nice if there are teachers or assistant teachers who speak the L1 of their students. We hired a Burmese lady, and she's on maternity leave, so she'll be back soon, to help with some of that. Just explain things for people who've never been to school before. They don't understand our ways in the American classroom. And as we've been learning today, we really need to keep focusing on reading and writing, because if you have a program that's just concentrating on the oral skills, they're not going to reap the benefits of the literacy. So yes, the oral communication part is important, but if you can keep working on the reading and writing, it's going to, you know, snowball so that they'll learn quicker and better. So, okay, so I have a few examples of a few teaching methods which utilizes the above suggestions. So, this is a writing prompt. I, again, only have 20 copies. So, what I do is I have this. I hand one out to everybody, and we ask for the vocab words. So, vocab word: hard hat, shirt, pants, boots, pipes, hammer, wrench. Yeah. And we write them right on the picture, right where it should be. The hard hat is written right across. Okay? So for the students who aren't literate, at least they're practicing writing the letters. And the word is repeated over and over. And I usually write them on the board. And I make sure first time around that everybody is following that instruction. Because some of them start to write it off to the side or down below. But we want it right on there. So if they ever go back and look at their work, they can see, oh, shirt, S-H-I-R-T, that's a shirt right there. Pants. So we go through that. We get as many. And I try to draw out what they know, okay? What is he wearing? what is he doing? Simple things like that. How do you spell it? Some of the more advanced students will know how to spell boots, B-O-O-T-S. And then as a class, depending on the level of your class, some of them need a lot of prompting, and sometimes you need to write it out. Make some sentences, maybe 5. Don't do any more than 5. So it's almost a story, right? The man is wearing a shirt and pants. The man is sitting on the floor. So some repetition. The man is fixing the pipe. So use the words that you've put together in the vocab and make sentences. So the students who are more advanced in literacy are actually writing sentences and putting a story together. So this activity helps people with 0 literacy up to those that are almost ready to start writing themselves. So it's kind of a collaborative thing there. So then reread the sentences, lots of repeating it, get the students to read the sentences, read the vocab words so that they're hearing it and seeing it. So that's the first one. There's the picture. And then communicative activities. No, I don't have a handout for this one. So again, I like this one because it involves all levels of students. I'm going to the grocery store to buy, and you have the alphabet written on the board, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we're going to start with the letter A, apples, and then draw a picture of an apple. You need to be a good drawer as an ESL teacher. So if the student can't read the word apple, they can still see the word apple. And then the next one, B. Anybody know a B word, that food, that starts? Banana. So go with the ones that most of them will know. Don't go with like berries. That's not a word that most of them, but most of them will know bananas. So go through the whole list. And every time you add one, you're repeating. So I'm going to the grocery store to buy apples, bananas, cucumbers, and then come up with a D word, donuts. And then go through it again. So keep going. So it's repetition, repetition, repetition. And then when you get to Z, go backwards. I'm going to the grocery store to buy zucchini and yogurt and what do we do? Extra milk, I think we did for X. So go backwards. And then the next big challenge is start erasing. So all you're leaving up there is the letter. So erase the D letter and the F letter and the G letter and still go through it again. I'm going to the grocery store and say the whole thing. Eventually erase every word and every picture, and all you have left is the alphabet, and most of your students will be able to still say apples, bananas, cucumbers, donuts, eggs, fish, all the way down. So it's quite a challenge for them. It takes about half hour, 45 minutes. So I did this last week, and some of my students were getting a little tired at the end of it because you could just see it was a little concentration overload, but most of them were with me, so it was a lot of fun. And then the last one I have, different versions of this one. I gave you 2 hands, okay. The different versions is, this does not work with the alphabet though, because I don't think you could think of clothing items or things. Like I'm going to work, I will bring my lunch, my ID, my keys, my bus ticket. So don't do these alphabetically, because I don't think it'll work. But still, put the alphabet on the board and see if they can remember the whole list and draw the pictures with it as well. So going to work, going on a trip, so what are you going to put in your suitcase? I'm going to school. They're all coming to school. What are they bringing? Their backpack, their baby, their purse, their, I don't know what else. I'm buying furniture for my house. If you're doing a unit on the home, you could do this. I'm planting a garden. We have gardens in the back of our church there. They plant flowers and tomatoes and different vegetables. I'm getting dressed, so vocab on clothing, t-shirt, underwear, bathing suit. Yeah, and don't do these in alphabetical order. And then my last teaching strategy is song. So I have handouts for these. Who can I get to hand them? Hand them? Oh, there's Jesus. So, what a wonderful world. I see trees of green, red roses. No, I haven't got it right. I had it memorized. Give me one.
Do you have the same number here?
Yeah, this is a few more than two. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed days and dark sacred nights. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Can you see the imagery in there? All the nouns? Here's a picture. So again, for people who are not literate, this works well too. A lot of repetition. You can show pictures. So here's the singer, Louis Armstrong. So I see trees of green, red, roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. So display the pictures, and then this would be your vocab, the nouns that you have, and then the closed worksheet is more advanced for those who are more advanced and can write the letters and go over it together with them. And then those who can read have the whole thing, and those who can't still have the pictures, and they've been hearing it, so the oral learners will learn that way. So I think that's it. Those are my references, and that's it. So, thank you. So, are there any questions? Yes.
Can you go back to the beginning of the PowerPoint? I never got the full connect.
Oh, okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you? How are you? Come on, you a little tired after lunch here? That last presentation was really boring, so now you're, okay. So we'll try to inject some life into this. My name is John Helmholt. I head up communications for GRPS. Thanks for coming to this this little breakout on working with schools. Part of what hopefully those of you who were there this morning heard me talk a little bit about how we're really trying as a district to tear down barriers, to make it easier to partner with the district, and to make sure there's a good, healthy two-way communication that will make it a little bit easier, a little more accessible to engage with our students, our staff. Part of that is also us educating the prospective partners and existing partners on some of the time and challenge and issues that are facing the schools, both from a management standpoint, staffing standpoint, as well as what some of the rules, regulations, board policies that govern our actions. What one thing is for sure around our superintendent and the approach in this district is we greatly value our public and private partnerships. We have many great models that can be duplicated, can be learned from, and we have a great panel here today to talk a little bit about the different perspectives. And I thought I'm going to eventually go through here, and we'll have them introduce themselves. But we have Bridget Cheney, who's the principal at Congress. She's going to bring a school perspective, because you remember you've got a principal and a secretary and a team of teachers and a gaggle 200, 300, 400, 900 kids, and you have a lot of volunteers, organizations that want to get involved. And how do you have that structure? How can she provide a school's perspective as to what that means? Because that's a task in and of itself, having to manage volunteers, managing some of those projects, managing expectations. I think that's another dynamic. You have a lot of individuals or organizations that will say, hey, I've got a great idea and I want to get a grant for this so we can come in and teach your kids or your student teachers this. And that's not really, there's a lot of that. It's very hard to look a gift horse in the mouth when you have those things coming. At the same point, when Superintendent Neal did her listening tour, 1,000 people participated, and the one dominant thing was we have too many initiatives. We don't say no. We say yes to everything, and we try to make it happen. Frankly, we do a half-assed job about it sometimes. Pardon my expression, professionally speaking. So that's part of our goal, is how do we start to align and make it so we are able to say this, how does this align with the academic plan? How does this align with the school improvement plan that each individual school is required to produce? And then how do we wrap those things so we're all rowing in the same direction, where everything's channeled toward those common goals, as opposed to having to dance and jump to accommodate some grant that some other individual organization wrote. That's some of the dynamics. So Bridget will talk a little bit about that. Jerhan Hawkins, who is one of the leading partners over at Martin Luther King Jr. Leadership Academy with the First United Methodist Church. Did I get that right? Okay. They've been with the district, with that school for 20 or so years. She'll get into the details, but this is like the model. They have a team of paid volunteers that organize tutors, mentors, field trips, parent nights, you name it. I mean, they do this in partnership with the school, receiving funds from private foundations, and they are just hand in glove in working with the school and the staff, and is a model that easily should be duplicated. Johanna Jelks is here as a neighborhood organizer with East Hills Neighborhood Association, East Hills Council of Neighbors. And there's a blossoming partnership happening with the East Hills Neighborhood Association and Congress that is a real model, kind of what I like to say, kind of the triple bottom line. It's how they're coming around the school as an anchor and what they can do to help retain and attract students and families, and some great approaches, because that relationship was not like that a little over a year ago, and I think we've come a long way, and so hopefully she'll talk a little bit about that. And then Fritz Crabb, of course, with United Way. You know, for those people who want to get involved but maybe don't know where to go or how to do it and need some structure, well, they have the structure. They have a process for Schools of Hope and how to get people involved. And so without further ado, I'm going to just turn it over. I'd say let's keep it free. They're going to do a kind of a quick intro, talk about it, and then we'll open it up for questions. Bridget.
All right. Well, I am Bridget Cheney. I'm the principal at Congress Elementary, and very happy to be here today. And we do have a blossoming partnership with the East Hills Council of Neighbors. And one of the things that I came into when I came on as a principal at Congress was, okay, we have lots of people who want to help, and I love all the help, but as John said, how am I going to organize this and make it something that moves student achievement? Because ultimately, that's what we need to do in literacy, in math, in social studies, science. So in order to move student achievement, we have to have all people on the same page and aligned with the task at hand. It's very helpful for me to know what certain great things people have to bring to the table when they're coming to me, but it's also where can I put them where it's going to be a square peg going into a square hole and not trying to force something that's not going to work. There are many other volunteer opportunities that are out there with our school that may not even be tutoring or working directly with children that may very well fit somebody as well. So I think when people think of volunteering, they automatically think one-on-one with a child or small group with children. There are many, many, many other things that can happen at the school and in the neighborhood that kind of envelop what we do at Congress and help us move forward. So that's my introduction. Happy to be here, like I say, and happy to be the principal of Congress, because I always say it's the best place in the world to be.
Center of the universe.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to steal it from Johanna. So.
That was fun. So should I introduce myself? Or?
Go for it.
All right. Well, awesome. Yeah, once again, I'm Johanna Jelks. I'm on the board of East Hills Council of Neighbors, and we're located at the corner of Cherry and Eastern. If you guys aren't so familiar, where the neighborhood association lies. Actually, we've had a very long-standing rapport with Congress Elementary School all the way back into the early 90s when Congress Elementary School has several times been kind of on the chopping block for being a potential school to be closed. And so throughout the years, a lot of our past organizers and particularly mothers in the area and the kids have participated in Saving Congress School. but in the past couple of years, and thankful for our Grand Rapids Public School Board and our latest superintendent, Teresa Neal, they have been very open to our new partnership, East Hills Loves Congress, which was born out of the idea that if you have a neighborhood that is successful in businesses, that is successful in attracting residents, your neighborhood school or the school in your area should be just as successful. And we really needed to take a look at ourselves, everyone who, from business owners to residents in the area, why we weren't so involved with the school per se, and why a lot of the new families aren't sending their kids to the local school, since everybody absolutely loves all the amenities of the area. So out of that, we were able to just have an open house, just something very small that kind of grew out of me and Bridget and a couple of the other board members and residents partnership. We had an open house just to expose the beauty of the school and the great programming that's taking place. And a lot of people in the area had never even set foot in the school. They had all these perceptions that were not true at all whatsoever. And out of that, you got, once again, like Bridget said, a bunch of energy around wanting to get involved and, what can we do? And we do want to send our kids here, but we don't know how to go about it. So then we formed East Hills Lives Congress. And, out of that now, I can say we have a volunteer database, and we've got 6 committees separately from residents. That will include residents, business owners, any type of stakeholders, parents. We'll have 6 committees that are dedicated to different factions of Congress Elementary School. And I can also say really briefly that we're not only looking to use this, to provide programming for the traditional school hours. We would like adult enrichment classes. We would like to use the building all the time because it's a community center. It's a beautiful place where people can gather and feel safe, and the kids are comfortable. And so we really want to explore how we could get the community involved outside of traditional school hours, whether that's teaching nutritional classes, exercise programs, dance, math, tutoring, just really envisioning a holistic school. So I thank John and Bridget for all of their help with us, and I hope that you guys can check us out.
Yes, and I do want to go in, if you don't mind, before we move along, because I want to say one of the first conversations we had, Congress and East Hills together, was yes, we know our areas of struggle and deficit here at Congress, very well aware of those. We are on top of those. We're working toward getting those barriers coming down so we can address them, the issues resolved. But ultimately, I said to them, I'd love to partner. I think it'll be a great thing. But one of the things you have to come in knowing is it's not, oh, these poor children. Okay, it's not. Our kids are very capable. They are successful young ladies and gentlemen. And I think sometimes there's a misnomer out there that, oh, I'm going to come in and I'm going to help this child because they don't have anything else, and that may be the case to a small degree, but ultimately they have the power to learn. They have the power to go far in life. How are we going to equip them? How are we going to empower them? Because it's not about bringing them, and giving. It's about how are we going to enrich their lives so that they want to be lifelong learners, so that they strive for the very best thing each and every day, so they know where they can go and they know where they want to head. It's not something where you can just infuse resources and people that have an idea that, oh, I'm going to save the world, and to do that I'm going to come in and love the children. Absolutely, we want you to love the children, but we don't even have to ask you to do that, because when you walk through the doors, it'll happen. They're lovable. I mean, they are just the most lovable children. But even beyond that, how are we going to equip them, their parents, families, the community, to come together, build literacy, build skills, and just an overall knowledge of what we have to offer in the community and beyond. So as a potential volunteer to any of you, we appreciate everything you do, but know that our kids are very strong, they're very smart, intelligent, and they're going places. We may just need to have a couple people come alongside them or a group of them and enrich in a few areas. So I think that's important to know as well. It's not the enabling, it's the empowering.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, really quickly, and also, we discuss this a lot from the community's perspective. It's about investment. I mean, these are all our kids. This is all of our future. This is an area where we all are paying taxes. We all are utilizing the transportation. We're all utilizing the businesses. So we really want to be innovative on saying, this isn't some sort of program where, there's a pity of, these students. No, this is all of our investment. And once we really started touting that, that also really helped with recruiting new families to the area because, it's showing a community support that we're all tied together. So.
Jared, before I turn it on, because I want to build on that just real quick. One of the cool things here is, and this is not just a one-way street where we are expecting people just to come to the schools. With East Hills, for example, we're working on a joint mailer that I'm going to pay for. That's going to not only tout the school, but it's also going to tout membership in the neighborhood association. We see this value. Same thing happened over in Creston, where they have their neighborhood business district was looking to do this streetscape. And one of the things, they're trying to scrounge for every pot of fun they could find, well, one of which was safe routes to schools. And our principal, we went above and beyond to help them get that so that we are part of that neighborhood district. We're part of that business district. And there are things that we are already doing that can piggyback, that can help tout some of the great things that your organizations are doing. Robocalls. West Michigan Environmental Action Council has this Better Homes. It's about greening the home, and there's like a discount program. We run robocalls to 10,000 people, and they've quadrupled the number of referrals they've got. I mean, those are just one quick example of, it's not, yes, it's about the schools, but it's a two-way street. We want to help support you and to help you help us. So, Jer.
I'm Jerhan Hawkins. I'm called the Church and School Coordinator with First United Methodist Church. Leah Muir is our volunteer coordinator at our program, and we each work about 20 hours a week as provided by the church. And we have approximately 100 volunteers that come in each week to Martin Luther King School to help us out. So some of those are tutors, one-on-one tutors, some are classroom aides, and then people do a lot of things to support the programs that I make sure happen. Leah's there the entire time that we're open for tutoring, and we tutor all kindergarten and first graders one-on-one for half an hour, and as many second graders as we can. We don't guarantee those because it's just a struggle to get enough tutors sometimes. So that's kind of our main focus. I do have a sheet up here that you're all welcome to take on both sides. It lists the other support programs that we run at the school, and the program started 21 years ago with the church saying we need to have a local mission. Instead of sending our mission dollars out of Grand Rapids, out of the state, out of the country, we need to have a local presence here and make an impact. And so it really started with 5 people going into what was then Henry's School, which has been torn down, and now MLK has been built in its place, and they pulled children in the lower grades for reading with the idea that we need to provide that strong foundation and do what we can to help them, because you can't plug in at 5th grade, say, without having that foundation already existing. So it was just a few ladies pulling chairs out into the hallway and reading, and now when they built MLK, they actually planned dedicated space for our center, and we've furnished it hand in hand with GRPS, and we have provided the money for all of our teaching materials, and so we are not a financial drain on the district. We provide everything ourselves, but they provided us with the space and some shelving, and so it's a really wonderful, wonderful relationship that we have. Someone pointed out to me the last time I spoke, you know, you have gone through 4 different administrations in the time that you've been there, and that is something to be proud of. And I hadn't really thought of it, but you know, each principal that comes in, each new staff that rolls through, everybody has a different idea about how things should run. And I think that one of the salient characteristics of our program is that we listen, we communicate, we flex with the times, and we're there to support the children. We don't come with our own hidden agenda. We're not trying to recruit kids to our Sunday school or anything like that. It is strictly helping children learn to read better and to feel better about themselves. So, you know, that's kind of our main focus, but we provide clothing for the kids and field trips and speakers. We've got the Veggie Mobile that comes from the YMCA, and so each of the kids gets to go and shop there and you know, get food, and we do birthday treats for the kids and that sort of thing. Our population, 99% of our students live below the poverty level, the national poverty level. So piggybacking on what Bridget has said, it isn't a handout program. It isn't about entitlements. What our goal is to enable the parents to learn, so we provide parent programming, but learn how to be better parents, how to work for what they get. So like at Christmas, we do a huge giving project where the kids, the parents sign up in the fall. They do volunteer work to earn their kids' gifts, either at the church, at the school, or in any kind of a sanctioned organization throughout the community. They fill out a work log, they bring it back, and then I match them up with donors. They provide me a wish list of what their kids would like, and then the donors buy from that list. So they're not just getting some sale items or what some other person perceives their child should want or need, but what they really want. And then the parents have a great deal of pride, for example, you know, that they have provided for their children by working hand in hand with us. So it's, you know, that's just one piece of what we do. So
Okay.
I had a few points. I don't know when you want me to bring.
Let's go. We'll go Fritz, and then we'll open it up, and we'll come back.
I'm Fritz Crabb. I'm Director of Literacy Initiatives at Heart of West Michigan United Way. And we have always been involved in our 90 years of funding organizations that support strong families and therefore are more capable of sending their children ready to learn. But about 11 years ago, Grand Rapids Public Schools received a grant for a reading program called HOSTS, which depended on one-on-one tutoring. And in order to do that, they needed to recruit a huge number of tutors, and they turned to, at that point, Heart of West Michigan United Way as a community organization that could coordinate and recruit those tutors. So our organization has really been sort of a middleman organization between the community and the schools. We've worked with such corporations as Amway, was represented here. They do tutors for us. Steelcase, Wolverine Worldwide, law firms, churches, you name it, we have worked with those folks as middlemen. We provided about 850 tutors through the Grand Rapids Public Schools last year. This year we're very proud to not only be working with Grand Rapids Public Schools, but opening up sites at Cedar Springs, Godwin, Godfrey Lee, Cedar Springs, Godwin, well, along with the Grand Rapids Public Schools. So we have really been a partner. Our tutors who range in age anywhere from college age up through their 90s probably, work with one student 30 minutes a week, and they tutor specifically in grades 1 to 3 and tutor in reading. And ours has been, with all of our school districts, a great partnership. When we started this program years ago, we went around with some community members and said, you know, if we start this program in the Grand Rapids Public Schools, would you be willing to tutor? And we found out that, yeah, they would, but there had been several poor experiences. In other words, I get there and the teacher forgot I was coming, or they threw a math paper at me that I didn't understand and sent me out in the dark hallway with this kid. or I got there and the child was not there, and so I wasted a trip. So we worked very closely, and I'm very proud of the work that we did and very proud of the work that Grand Rapids Public Schools did in order to make it a good place to volunteer and get some really good results. Grand Rapids Public Schools at that point, and now we require it of any school district we work with, has put a coordinator in each one of those schools, so that when a tutor goes in, they are met by a coordinator. The second thing Grand Rapids Public Schools has done is that they have set aside a good place for tutoring. So it could be in the corner of a library, it could be in a room set aside for it, but all our tutors are in one place. They are not scattered all over the building. They're not in a dark, cold place. Third thing Grand Rapids has done is provided the materials. We've helped with some of that, but basically Grand Rapids has provided the materials for our tutors, which are basically leveled books. So our tutors go in and know where to start with their children. So it's been a very good partnership. We have worked very closely together to make sure that it works, make sure that we're solving problems before they can become major. And because we are a community organization and because United Way works with so many companies, we probably have over 40 companies right now that are providing tutors in one form or another. And we try to make it easy for our companies also. If they have 10 or more tutors, we will train right at the company site. Otherwise, we have about 30 public trainings that occur every semester over at Red Cross. Those are on our website. So it's been a very good process. And through that process, then we've been able to do some other things for the schools. We just finished with a huge Stuff the Bus campaign where we collected school supplies from about 15 companies. Those were sorted by volunteers and will be distributed very soon to all of our schools. We help them with Read Across America, bringing in speakers. And we also do a book drive with several other community organizations where we collected about over 10,000 books last year, sorted them and distributed them to children for summer reading. And we also provide AmeriCorps workers to help our coordinators. And in fact, our AmeriCorps workers in our new schools districts are actually going to be the coordinators in those districts. So through the years, we've been able to establish some very good opportunities, very good ways to work with the schools. And I want to emphasize just a couple of things that I think I heard over there also very briefly. Number one, as we went into the schools, we realized that our job was not to teach reading. We realized that the schools were doing a very good job of teaching reading, but some of our children just needed more time on task. So our tutors have some simple techniques that just help our kids learn to become independent readers, but we are not teaching reading. And as Bridget and Johanna also said, we're very careful to tell our tutors that number one, the schools are doing an excellent job, and number two, that these children are fully capable of learning. One quick story, when we started our training years ago, we'd always have somebody come up after a public training, after the training. They wouldn't raise their hand during the training, after the training, and say to us, now, is it okay to be in these schools? Well, there were a whole bunch of questions behind that one, and we said yes. We only had that question the first year. Nobody has ever questioned since then that the schools that we are in are clean, are safe, and that our teachers are in the buildings teaching, and our kids are in the classrooms learning. So besides what we're doing to help our kids learn to read, I think we're also helping promote the image of our public schools, and we're happy to go to 3 other school districts this year. happy to promote the image of our public schools as good places for learning.
Amen.
And then I hate to hijack you a second. I'm so sorry, but I have to say this really fast.
We've done it before.
I have to get it in really fast. I think very clearly what you've heard from everybody here is there's a starting point, and it's a focused starting point, and then we evolve from there. We're in the infancy stages in our partnership with the volunteering and the many things that we're going to do with the East Hills Loves Congress partnership. And Gerhan is extremely active and involved, and there are several things that fall under what she does. And as she said, she's done it for 21 years. So fantastic, but don't be afraid to start small and be very focused, because from that you can grow. But if you try to start large and incorporate too many things, and as Johanna knows, we very well, we have these grand ideas, and we think, okay, wait, we need to scale back a little bit because we want to do it well. And as we do it well, then we can take on something else. So, anyway.
Great point. No, that's, in fact, I think Gerhan could probably attest to that it's kind of trial and error. I mean, some of it is patience and perseverance. There is some of that, I'm one of those guys that just wants to get in and get it done. And sometimes it just doesn't happen that quick and that easy. And so that's probably one of the other messages for the partners and the volunteers is please be patient with us. I mean, there is some processes, there is some bureaucracy. We are a governmental entity, but we're trying to remove those barriers or at least grease the wheels as much as possible. So let's open it up. If you have any questions, of course, I can always ask leading questions and tee this up, but I'm curious to know kind of what brought you to this session and what are the questions and things you want to know about how to work with schools.
You all know I've been around GRPS for a long, long time. My kids are adults and now they're children. Now they have children. And the entity, the piece that I miss the most are seeing parents and adults in buildings. We all know that the more you see an adult in the building, the better that school just becomes. The environment changes. It's different when a bunch of little people come around the corner and all of a sudden they see 3 adults standing there and it's like, ooh, they're all mothers. They know what they have to do. They know how to respond. And I know the story of Congress and MLK, and that always just gives my heart just great joy. But at the same time, I look at even my neighborhood schools, and they have a volunteer that's supposed to coordinate volunteers, and there's no volunteers in the building. There's no adult entity. And I think it just changes the entire climate. And so I guess my question would be, how can we trickle down, or is there anything that, like, Bridget, are you talking to other principals and saying, no, these are small things you can do? Because I think we're missing that component, not having parents or adults in those buildings.
I absolutely agree, and I do have to say we have sidebar conversations about that all the time because it does ultimately help us because we can't be everywhere at once. And when we do have, as you say, many mother hens in the building, it's a great thing. The kids learn from other people. They learn to see that we are a community, and it, not to sound cliche, but it does take a village, and that's what it shows our kids, but also puts out to the community. So we are having some of the sidebar conversations. I think what I have seen now that I've been at Congress for a few years, the comfortability that parents get with a principal, with the staff, I think that's where it starts. The parents need to know that when they walk into the school, they're not going to be criticized, they're not going to be judged, they're not going to feel like they're incompetent, because they're not. They may have different ideas, they may have many different experiences, and sometimes school was not a good experience for these folks. And ultimately what we need to do is embrace them and say, what do you feel you can offer? And that goes kind of back to what I was talking about earlier, and that's been part of our conversation as principals, as let's take people from where they're at. Let's not have an expectation of they're going to come in and this is what I need a volunteer for. Absolutely not. If you can come in and give my kids a smile when they walk through the door every morning and shake their hand, absolutely phenomenal. That starts every one of the kids' days off on the right foot. Things like that sometimes we miss when we're thinking about volunteers. We think, oh, volunteers, we must be mini teachers. Not the case at all. I will tell you, the first week of school, my administrative assistant, Secretary Maria, fantastic job she does. She's enrolling kids and families, and you know how scurried that is. And of course, I'm upstairs on the third floor, downstairs on kindergarten level, all of this. And I had one of our volunteers come in and say, "What do you need me to do?" And I said, "You know what? It'd be great if you could sort the mail and put it in the mailboxes for me." It sounds very minute, but it's not, because over the summer, all this mail had piled up because, we're not there. And we have at Congress, every child in the building gets a Cricket magazine. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Cricket, Spider, Ladybug magazines are great literary resources. Every child in the building gets them. I actually stole that idea from MLK, I'm proud to say. And they get a Highlights magazine once a month as well. So all of those had come over the summer, and they had not been distributed. That's a lot of mail to get out to distribute, and we want our families to have them as quickly as possible. So that was a huge task, and it was nicely done, and it wasn't one of those things where, oh, you have to be qualified, I hope you have a degree, I hope you've worked with children before. So not to go off on a long trail, but to say those are definitely conversations we're having, and hopefully we're starting to see that turn around, because I think the message has been very loud and clear to us. The only way that these families and parents are going to come in is if we welcome them and make them feel comfortable and at home, because that is their school. It's not just their child's school, it's theirs as well. And we need to embrace that. We need to welcome that.
At the district level, I know Teresa, our superintendent, created what we call the red shirts, or the deputized volunteers. And part of that has been targeted at the high school level. We actually have a fair amount of parent engagement and some volunteers at the elementary levels. Kids like cute, cuddly, compliant little kids, but when they get older, we see that volunteerism and the parent participation drop off significantly. And so we kind of developed this program, and we're not asking these volunteers to do much. Be in the hallways, get to know the kids, be there to greet the kids, and they'll have certain tasks. But so there's the way to go into the school. You can go in through the district level, whether it's the Red Shirt program or Parent Action Leader. There's some others. And then you've obviously got United Way and other external organizations that are already partnered with systems and processes. So, but I couldn't agree more. I mean, that is getting more people in the buildings and having that impact, but doing it in an organized fashion.
We've run some parent programming. One of the more significant ones is Dates with Dad, because men seem to not be in the schools as much. And we're pulling in 65 to 85 men. Now, they may not be the dad, they could be the father figure, or an uncle, or a grandpa, or somebody. But, we just provide pizza. We have time for them to meet their teacher, because a lot of them don't know who the teacher is, and they're very happy to get in the classroom, and the teacher talks about the expectations. And they read together with the children, or the children read to the father figure. They have an activity in the gym, and we just want to create an environment where the parents feel comfortable being there, and then that they're respected. So when we ask them to do their volunteering, we have a little bit of an issue with background checks, and some people can't pass those, and that's a huge barrier for our families. But what I do is I set up volunteer times for those people where they will not be in contact with the children, so that they can feel that they're contributing to the school and that they are they're respected. I value them so much because there is so much to do, and they are thrilled to be there. So we've worked really hard to assimilate parents into our programs, and I think it's really paying off.
Marcia, did you have a question?
It's a concern, I guess, and if somebody could address it. I'm concerned by the randomness of the kind of things we're talking about, and I've experienced that with the public library as well. We take our long-term 50-year standard program, summer reading program. I mean, libraries were involved with summer reading plus long before anybody understood summer reading plus. So we have schools in the system. One thing we did policy-wise
Sure. Part of that was a systems issue at the top. I think that we've developed some improved systems where, in fact, we're bringing those partners into the principals meetings, where the executive directors take ownership to say, with Student Advancement Foundation, for example, this is our largest student. They're the foundation for the district, essentially, and they had troubles with responsiveness, with a lot of the same things that you just shared. Some schools, it was just no problem, and the others, they literally had no response. And so we created a standing item once a month at the principals meetings. We created a cabinet level person who's assigned to, that's me, to SAF. And so that, I guess I would say, contact me, let's start there. And how do we work on building that relationship? Because that is, part of it is we may not even know it. But once we do know, then we set the expectation where the leadership owns it and says, we have an expectation. Back in the day, we may not have expected the school to be a member of the neighborhood association and to really actively engage. That's an expectation now. And it's one that we know that can only strengthen the schools. And how do we create access to those things that are those natural partners, like the public library, like libraries and laptops. We've been working on building that up and getting information out. So I would welcome any of you contact. I'm really easy to get a hold of. My cell phone's on the website. You can call at any time. But I think part of that is a changing culture of trying to be more open, but also the accountability that says the customer service. That is something that Superintendent Neal, among her top kind of priorities, is customer service, both with our internal stakeholders, but also in how we're being responsive to our key stakeholders. A lot of times we have a lot of support, and we may not even have a thank you letter that goes out. And so those are some dynamics that Teresa's trying to change across the district, but it also starts with reach out. If you're having an issue in the school, let us know. You don't have to be a tattletale. This is about knowing the issue, having accountability, and building up systems so that, if there's a reason why maybe the secretary is overwhelmed or the principal, whatever it may be, how do we build supports? And that's our new mantra. We're not here to do the top down out of central office. What's the support? What's the training? What's the staff? What's the resource that they may need so they may better work with their community partners?
And I'm not so much worried about the library as an institution. I'm worried about the students in the schools that don't have the engaging relationship.
Yep. That is one where there has to be more of a process of how we go. We should have a First United Methodist for every single school. And in fact, many of the schools have different levels of partnership, but it is not consistent across the district. And that's part of the trick. I mean, you do have a lot of different initiatives. And we've met with the pastor. I know Superintendent Neal's met with the pastors, and we've started to provide them with more information about these different models. And so hopefully the more that's kind of the message earlier, is they're saying, tell us how we can help. What do you need? Give us the structure and I'll go do it, because they may not know how best to do it. And so we're trying to kind of come up with here's the basic level, 30 minutes a week through United Way, or here's the maximum level, adopt the school, go bring in dollars, paid volunteers, organizing, things like that.
Yeah, I think we have found over the years, Marcia, that two things. Number one, find out who your best contact is at the school that you're working with. And so we have the coordinators in the building, which has been very good for us. And GRPS has always had, then, beyond the coordinators, they've had a central office person who has had, as part of his or her responsibility, overseeing those coordinators. So we get to meet with those coordinators once a month and really talk about what's happening. And then secondly, I think if you're doing a district-wide program, get somebody, whether it's GRPS or any other district, get somebody like John Helmholt, who you know is your district contact. So that if you're doing a district-wide program, who is your district contact? Who is going to be there to support you? And we've always found that there's a lot of give and take. Be prepared for give and take. Be prepared not to come in with a canned program and say we're going to do this or else, but be prepared to work with the school. We're trying to institute a new program based on the Minnesota Reading Corps. We met with a school district outside of Grand Rapids about a week and a half ago, and they're willing to work with us, but we need to adapt our program to their Gator program so that there's the best elements of both programs in there. If we had gone in and said, we just want to do this program, and if you don't want to take this program, take it or leave it, we would have been out of that school district. So you really have to be, I think, patient. I think you have to be willing to negotiate and especially be respectful of a district's curriculum. There's nothing worse for a child than being taught one way during the school day and having a tutor or another program come in and do something completely different and tell them that this is the way to do it. So I think you have to be very, very patient with the school district. I think you have to have a contact with the school district. And you also, I think, sometimes, if you're coming in, have to be prepared for no as being the answer. You know, I think of all the calls that I get at home or over the internet offering me something for free. I don't take everything because they don't all meet my needs. And sometimes I know that even if I say free for this, there is some other alternative, ulterior motive behind that. So schools can't take everything that we might be offering. So I think you have to be patient. I think you have to have a good program. I think you have to be willing to negotiate. And I think you have to be prepared for getting no as an answer sometimes. And that's not a reflection on that it's not a good program. That's not a reflection on your organization. That's just a statement that says what you want to do right now. We may already have somebody that's doing the same thing, or it may not fit our curriculum, or it may not fit where we're going with our children right now. So I think you have to be really prepared for those kinds of things as you're working with a school district. And having spent, before I spent 11 years with United Way, I spent 31 years with the Grand Rapids Public Schools. And I've seen this with all our public schools, and I think this is something we as community members need to realize is through no fault of their own, every year there are higher demands on our public schools and there are fewer resources to meet those demands, both at central office and within the buildings. I have the highest respect for people like Bridget who would love to have a 40-hour week, right? Yeah, love to have a 40-hour week. That's not possible if you're going to do a good job with a principal anymore. So again, please be patient and respectful of the hard work these people are putting in and the wonderful job they're already doing with our children. They need us, but they need us in the right way.
Yeah, kind of plan ahead. It seems like a lot of times we get fabulous opportunities that come our way, but it's like, oh, this Friday we'd like to give you 500 tickets to the circus or something. Oh, we can't manage that. And you know, we've got to first and foremost keep our children safe and ensure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and so forward planning is really important.
Mm-hmm. It is important. And I think one quick thing to add on, if it's ever, and I'm thinking about your program in particular, if you're passing literature out for us to hand out, something that's extremely helpful for us, we have at Congress, 40% of our families are Spanish speaking. So if I'm going to send something home, it goes in Spanish and English both. There are other schools within the district that are much higher percentage Spanish speaking than even I am, but I'm very cognizant of the fact that if I send something in English, it may be the best thing in the whole wide world, but if the families aren't able to read it in their own language, they may not partake. So being very aware also of that is extremely appreciated.
Another thing is pre-count them so that they just have to be popped in the mailboxes as opposed to bringing in reams of flyers. Someone's got to find the time to distribute them.
thinking from the coalition's perspective, sometimes I would really love to get teachers' thoughts on literacy in the community or education and principals' thoughts, and I haven't quite figured out the best way to do that. And I guess I'm just wondering what you would suggest in contacting the teachers and without, because I've been a teacher, I understand how much time it is and how maybe a community member asking you a question might feel like a bug on your shoulder or something. So I'm wondering how I could best, I guess, contact teachers and get their thoughts and use their time wisely.
Sometimes I think one of the best things to do is put it out there to many teachers and say, we would love to have a round table, or this is what we have going on. If somebody's extremely passionate, and I'm going to pick on you a minute, Roseanne, she's our language arts person for GRPS, and she's our curriculum supervisor for GRPS Language Arts, and sometimes if you could even pick her brain on how best can I get this out to people who are interested, knowing that, I mean, out of the, what did you say, 270, I think, people that are here today, we have 20 in this room. So knowing that if you distribute to the masses, you may get, you know, a small number, but that's okay because it's a starting point for you. But to put it out there to many, so those who are interested or passionate about that subject can come forward and really add value to what you're asking for. So I would say that's, for teachers anyway, a great start. For principals either, because Roseanne's in contact with us all the time as well. So, you know, really not pinpointing certain people, we'd like this group to come or that person to come, but putting it out there to somebody who's interested. Because I think that's what you want. You want the perspective of people who are going to have the buy-in, who are going to be knowledgeable because that's what they do, because they love it. So
I'd build off a little bit of what Bridget said. If you can try to imagine, well, if you knew how many tests that the teachers need to administer and just the surveys that we're required to do by law, that alone is a challenge, especially at the end of the year. That's the other thing that a lot of people, there are certain times of the year that's a little bit crazier than others. You know, between September and October, it's meat preparation. So that's all everyone's thinking about. Same thing in March, that's the Michigan Merit Exam, the ACT. And so there's certain things that the general public just doesn't know what dominates the time. But I was going to say exactly what Bridget said. Well, my experience has been working with the curriculum specialists because they have the relationship with those specific teachers. If you're looking for English language art teachers, then you go through if you go through history, social studies, Malunge is who I would go to. But if you want to contact the central office, my office, or Dr. DeBoer, you know, Dr. DeBoer is in our accountability and compliance, and they're the ones who help administer all these surveys, and there's a many number of them. So there's that would be probably your best bet, is to try to get some of that leadership at the top to help channel it. The other option is, you know, we do have the instructional council there, so you have kind of the teacher leaders that help do that. That could be another group to go to say, hey, I need a focus group of 10 teachers. Can you help me out? Chances are that if an email comes from one of the executive directors or the curriculum specialist saying, hey, this is our partner, we need 10 volunteers to complete this survey or to do it, that'll be more likely than you just grabbing email addresses and just shooting it out. So, but that is a challenge. I'll tell you, even we struggle to get some of those responses. But again, my experience has always been the executive directors and the curriculum specialists are the go-to people because they have the relationships. They know they can go and say, hey, Kelly, I need you to do this for me, please. Take 5 minutes.
Can I ask you a second? You said you're a teacher and you said community members would come to you and that would maybe be a distraction at times for your work. You know, we're really trying to figure out how we can best, as community members, support the teachers and really engage them and be really tout our teachers because we really see our teachers as, you know, those are our first line leaders. And so we really, as a neighborhood, I know we have plans to enroll all sorts of special teacher and principal support things as well, because if you're not cheerleading, you know, your staff that's in the school. It makes it that much more challenging when you do need some help or advice, or you want to get some input. So I guess, what I would like to see personally is for East Hills Loves Congress, we definitely want to increase our teacher engagement, but we want to first be their best advocates. And so can I ask you, what are some things that maybe community members can do to support teachers so that we can have that a easier relationship and be able to build outside of mandatory hours? Because that's where all the work is really, you have your mandatory hours, and then, we have all this time where we could be building with our teachers and with our principal support. But, we want to know how best that we can support you guys. And I don't know, maybe Bridget has ideas, but, you're a young teacher, and if you were in Congress, we would want to be more of a service to you than, a distraction, I suppose,
Yeah, I actually used to be a teacher, and I'm the coalition director of this community literacy initiative. So I'm asking from the perspective of knowing how busy a teacher is. And I don't feel that the teachers are in any way feeling like I'm a bug for being a community member asking, wanting to support, because I just wanted to know the best way, like you, to be an advocate and to be a support.
And to open that dialogue, it sounds like, too, to know, here are our thoughts, where should we go from here, or does this suit what you need, and things like that. So, and it's always good, out of anything that I've ever learned, involve the stakeholders, because you may have a grand idea, but it's only grand to you unless other people buy in. So absolutely brilliant idea to try to get that input from others.
I would also know, I kind of mentioned district level, how to break through that, from there and bring it down. But the principal, they have their staff meeting every other Monday. And if that was something that they decide to say, hey, this is you're working with this specific school, that's something that relationship should be there, where you can say, hey, I need this feedback for a grant, report or whatever it may be. And they should be able to have that relationship to facilitate and say, hey guys, let's take 5 minutes at the end of this meeting and quick do this. So it's all about relationships, and how we can connect it to the right people.
Okay, so John, I'm going to challenge you.
Go for it. Tempe, bring it on. Come on. I've pretty much hit every curveball that can get thrown at me.
I'm on another committee, and every year this foundation gives a tremendous amount of money for grants.
Okay.
For GRPS schools, parochial schools, and Christian schools.
Mm-hmm.
And what we see when we read the grants is that it's always the same schools and almost the same teachers
Yep.
who apply. And I'll be sitting there reading these grants, I'm just where are these other teachers? Wait, you just gave me the answer, because the grants are all due in by the middle of October. Your teachers are swamped with meetings.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
They don't have time to write
Yep.
these grants.
Yep.
And I'll even go to a teacher person, why did you write a grant? And I'm sure she's sitting there thinking, she's about ready to go into tears. I want to write a grant, but I need to do this too. Is there any way to communicate that, let's say to the foundation community, timing of when they ask for things and do things? Because there's so many teachers out there who need grant money for certain things in their classroom, and I know they could get it.
And simplify the grant writing process.
And simplify the
It
grant.
is
And we try to this
amazing.
year. We try
Yeah.
to simplify it every
It's
year.
very time
But
challenging.
it's still, it's time.
Yeah.
If you want a good grant, it has to be written well, because the board, it leads the grant writing sessions. They know they have to write it well. But now I know that we just have put a tremendous burden on a number of GRPS teachers, because they know they've got to get the meets out.
Yeah.
They've got to get those kids ready for the meets.
I will say thank you, first of all, for recognizing that, because I am continually in staff meetings via email. Hey, such and such grant alert, I'm here, I heard word that you guys were thinking about doing this. My first grade teachers were thinking about doing a reading rocket room. Fantastic, and they said we need funding, and I said, okay, what grant avenues do we have? And time absolutely was of the essence. And what we saw through one of the grant programs as at our principals meetings were that many pre-kindergarten grants were funded this one particular year last year. And I was thinking, why did so many pre-kindergarten get funded and not our other grades? And you're absolutely right. That's absolutely what it is, because they're on a shorter calendar than we are at the K-5 level. And so their school year, last year anyway, started 3 weeks after ours did. It's huge. 3 weeks is a lot of time. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I could tell
I'm
you
sure
too.
you're right. And I can tell you what teachers from my building will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
I think one of the biggest challenges you're having is the foundations and businesses, their fiscal year is usually the calendar year.
Yeah.
And the school year does not. Right, so they wanna finish up those grants in October so that they have time to process them all before the end of the calendar year. Your other option probably would be ask if you could apply for the next one, which would not be a whole year's time, which most of them would cover. But if you could change that to the first of the year. Without
Yeah.
forgetting this year, change it to the first of the year from then on. Maybe it's 2/13, change it to the first of the year, and then from that point on, go from the first of the year. Which would mean you'd only probably have a second semester, because you probably wouldn't get the money for a couple months then. I don't know how long it is.
You get it soon.
Yeah.
But that would be the difference. They
Well-
would apply if they have from January till June to apply, because they get the money in October.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have enough teachers.
Or they may not be the same, they may not be in the same grade level, or.
I think you raise a great question. I know we're out of time here, but I'll bring that up. No, that's a great idea, because I don't think we have. I know we've kind of had bits and pieces of conversations, but it's time to be more intentional, to bring Community Foundation, the other ones in, and say, okay, guys, we know who the usual suspects are that apply every year. How do we find? We know there's those individuals in each building that will do it. Maybe they just need a little coaxing or a little bit more high level thinking. So. Amen.
And we thank you.
If you all wouldn't mind, please complete. We're done here. We're out of time. Please take a moment, fill out your survey. That would be greatly appreciated. And we'll stick around if you have a few extra questions. Thanks everyone for coming.
Number two.